Call the meeting to order. If I could ask everybody to stand and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Open Public Meeting Statement. In accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, it is hereby announced and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following: posted in the bulletin board of the Office of the Township Clerk, posted in the bulletin boards with the Municipal Complex, printed in the Home News Tribune on December 30th, 2022, posted on the Monroe Township website, and sent to those individuals who have requested personal notice. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. LaFatte?
Here.
Ms. Damiani?
Here.
Mr. Lupo?
Here.
Mr. Masters?
Here.
Mr. Busman? Ms. Caratori?
Here.
Mr. Tanzi?
Here.
Mr. Jaffe?
Here.
Mr. Verdi? Mr. Cole? Dr. Kenzie?
Here.
If I could have a nomination for chairperson of the board.
I'll make a motion to nominate Vincent LaFatta.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any additional nominations? I have a motion to close nominations.
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a roll call vote for chairperson?
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFatta?
Yes. That's a gimme.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's yours.
Okay, now, board members, we need a nomination for a vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations? I'd like to nominate Carol Damiani for vice chair.
Second.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing there's none, I'd like a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, Madam Chair, for vice chair.
Ms. Damiani?
Do I vote for myself? Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFatta?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, I have a motion for a nomination for board attorney. Do we have a motion? I will make a motion. I will so move to nominate Mr. Peter Vignulo for board attorney.
Second.
Second. Are there any other motions for board attorney? Seeing there's none, can I have a motion to close nominations for
So
board
moved.
attorney?
Motion to
Second.
close.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFatta?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, Pete. Okay, board members, we have a motion or a nomination for board engineer. Do I have a motion?
Nominate CME.
Engineer, not planning. The engineer. CME's planning. That's all right. Everyone's nervous. I'll make a motion to,
Second. I'll make the motion.
Who made that?
Mark.
Mark, do we have a second?
Mark has moved.
Okay. Okay, are there any other nominations for board engineer? Seeing there's none, I need a motion to close for
So
board
moved.
engineer.
So moved.
Madam Secretary, roll call, please, for board engineer.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo? Mr. Masters? Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFatta?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Mark. Okay, board, we have we need a nomination for board planner. Do we have any
Nominate
no-
CME.
Now we're good, okay. Do we have a second for CMA? We have a second. Okay, are there any other nominations for board engineer? I'm planner. Seeing there's none, a motion to close.
Motion to close. Second. Oh, yeah.
Madam Secretary, Roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori? Yes. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFada?
Yes. Okay, board members, a nomination for board secretary. Is there anyone out there who wants to be with us? I will make a motion to nominate Laura.
So, second.
Second. Are there any other nominations for board secretary? Seeing there's none, I need a motion to close nominations for board secretary.
Close.
Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori? Yes. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFada?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're all in place. Now we can start conducting some business. Yeah, we're gonna get rules and regs. Okay, board members, you would deliver the packet with all the rules and regulations of the zoning board for 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second? I guess a roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori? Yes. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFada?
Yes.
Dates.
Dates coming up. Okay, board members, also before you, you have a list of dates for all zoning board meetings for the year of 2023. Do I have a motion to approve all the board meetings?
Motion to approve?
Second. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori? Yes. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFada?
Yes.
That's the minutes.
Okay, board members. I need a motion to approve the board minutes from November 29th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, thank you. Okay, you want to take over for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Chairman, we have 4 applications listed on the agenda this evening. If we run through them really quickly, just to announce for the public what's going on with respect to each. The first application is BA 5216-22 Concordia MZL LLC. That application is going to be placed on the agenda for the board's March 28th, 2023 meeting. The applicant will need to renotice in advance of that hearing date. Second application is BA 5222-22 Ravi Shankar Kovi. That application is being carried to the board's February 28th, 2023 meeting. The applicant will need to renotice prior to that hearing as well. Third application is BA 5214-21 Esposito Construction LLC. That was carried from our last meeting on November 29th, 2022. The applicant is here and ready to proceed. And finally, the last application is BA 5223-22 Patrick Mahan. The applicant is similarly here and ready to proceed this evening.
Thank you, counsel.
Got it.
Okay, the application BA-5214-21 Esposito Construction LLC, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Lawrence Sachs, on behalf of the applicant Esposito Construction. This is Block 31, Lot 1, and the property is on Federal Road. And as the board will recall, we were last here on November 29th, and we did not conclude all of our testimony. I don't believe we were able to. We started the evening rather late that night. So we only presented 3 witnesses. Mr. Kevin Shelley, who is our project engineer, who is here again this evening, is going to talk about some minor revisions and clarifications to the plan. We also had our planner, Mr. David Roberts, who provided the planning testimony, and Mr. Matthew Esposito, who is the principal of the applicant, also provided some operational questions. Since November 29th, a couple things have happened. First of all, I had successful hip replacement surgery in December, so I'm back on my feet for tonight. But based on a number of questions and issues that came up during that hearing from your professionals, from board members, and from members of the public, we want to clarify a few items. We also want to try to get through Mr. Razumovich's report. I think we tried to at the last hearing, but it was getting too late and we couldn't do that. So a couple things. First of all, there was some questions about the hours of operation. We're going to clarify that for you this evening. This is not a 24/7 operation. It will have limited hours of operation, and we'll provide that information to you. We'll also clarify the number of employees that will be on site on a daily basis. Another question came up regarding, and it was also in Mr. Razumovich's report, about fluids disposal on the site. We have provided to you basically a standard operating procedure as to how we're going to deal with fluids, but we'll provide testimony to that.
Counsel, let me interrupt you for 1 second, please. In the absence of Mr. Busman, who is here for your previous application, Mr. Jaffe will be a full voting member tonight, should this reach a vote, okay? Just wanted to.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
He was here for last meeting as well.
I remember. All right, so I guess the two issues that really arose, comments from the public, and I think even from one or two board members, was dealing with traffic and weight issues, dealing with these vehicles and equipment. And as a result of that, we engaged a pretty comprehensive traffic study, and we have a traffic engineer here this evening who will give you his insight as to that. And then finally, there was a question about noise that might be generated from this site. We also engaged a noise study, and I have a noise expert who will be here this evening as well. So, I think we've covered all of these issues, and I think you'll be enlightened by what we discovered, particularly with respect to traffic. We are going to propose a certain traffic route, which I think will be acceptable to the board and also acceptable to your professional staff. And one other thing that came up during the public portion last time was a concern about crushing of any materials that are occurring on site. There are no plans to do any crushing whatsoever on this site. This is basically and simply a repair garage and a staging area for vehicles and a storage area for equipment. And we'll give you some more clarification as to that, but there'll be no crushing of any materials on this property. So, with that said, if I can, I think Mr. Shelley may have previously been sworn, Mr. Vignola, but if you need to swear him in again.
We'll swear him again in quickly. It's been 2 months. If you could raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And if you could state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us your address, please.
Kevin Shelley, last name Shelley. I'm the owner of Shore Point Engineering, located at 1985 Highway 34 in Wall.
And Mr. Shelley, you previously appeared and qualified as an expert in the area of engineering before this board. Have your credentials been detrimentally affected since last you appeared and so qualified?
No, they have not.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we can accept as an expert in the area of civil engineering.
Counsel,
Okay.
please continue.
Mr. Shelley, I know you're going to cover some clarification points from last time, and also I know there might have been one or two minor revisions to the plans and a truck route, so I'll let you proceed.
Thank you. As everyone can recall from the last hearing, we had spent a decent amount of my testimony walking through the different variances and waivers that were associated with this project, mainly due to the fact that it's an existing facility and some of the existing improvements do not comply with the current zoning standards. Items such as parking spaces in a front yard, but those are in spaces that currently exist. A trash enclosure that's in the front yard. Again, it's in a location that currently exists, or it's going in a location that is currently paved on the driveway. There were a couple items that we indicated that we would comply with, that we would make changes to eliminate waivers and variances. We went ahead and revised our plans to address the items that we said we would comply with to remove those waivers and variances. Some of those items included revising parking stalls to be 10 foot by 20 foot in size instead of 9 foot by 20 foot, as we originally requested a waiver. So that has been updated on the plans. As a result of widening the parking stalls, we are now only providing 30 spaces, whereas 32 were originally proposed. Again, the total parking still complies with the parking requirement of the use in the zone, but the spaces were revised from 32 to 30. There were several variances originally noted pertaining to the site signage out along Federal Road. We indicated that the signage would be removed and that we would not be requesting any relief associated with it. That signage has been removed from the plans so that it is not part of the application. In the middle of the existing driveway is a utility pole. We have updated the plans to show that utility pole being relocated out of the driveway into a safer location before the driveway. So that's noted on the plans. We had indicated that we would add a loading zone to comply with the township ordinance. That loading zone is now delineated on the plans. We have also added a no left turn sign for trucks at the driveway where the property meets Federal Road. As Mr. Sachs indicated, we had a traffic study prepared and submitted. Through coordination with our office and the traffic engineer, we've established a truck route that would be applicable for this site. I have an exhibit. Actually, not an exhibit. It's a copy of the truck route exhibit that was prepared and submitted to this board for tonight. Prepared by my office, dated January 20th, 2023. This exhibit delineates the truck route for this property. All trucks will be required to make a right turn out of the driveway onto Federal Road. They'd be required to make a left turn onto Perineville to bring them out to 33, where they could continue east-west to their final destination. That is the truck route that any trucks leaving this site will follow. I know there were conversations or discussions about where trucks are coming from, what roads, weight limits on certain parts of different roads. We did our study. We reviewed the information provided by the township and the county regarding weight restrictions on certain roads. This is the truck route for the property that all trucks leaving the site or coming to the site will follow. There were also some conversations about the operation at the property. What is the proposed use, the hours, what would be occurring here? On the site plans, on the title sheet, we have a proposed use description of what the operation will be. We also have a list of heavy equipment and vehicles listed on here, as well as the construction materials that would be stored here. But again, just to clarify, the hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Truck drivers arrive at this site in their personal vehicles starting at 6 a.m. They then take their work trucks and leave for the day. These drivers are on the road for the majority of the day. Mechanics arrive and begin vehicle maintenance at 7 a.m. on the site. When servicing of the company vehicles cannot occur at job sites, the vehicles will be brought here for maintenance and repairs. And whenever possible, all vehicles and equipment being maintained, the maintenance will be performed inside one of the two buildings on site. Any fluids associated with these vehicle maintenance will be collected and disposed of properly. As we indicated at the previous hearing, there is some limited storage of construction materials such as extra pipes, precast concrete structures, concrete blocks or geotextile fabrics, traffic control devices that may be stored here temporarily when they're not being used by another site. And they will be stored in the designated areas located on the plans. There is no storage of aggregates or soils at the site. As Mr. Sachs indicated, there will be no concrete crushing taking place at this facility.
Okay, just a couple follow-up questions, Mr. Shelley. So I know that, and we're going to have our traffic engineer testify as to the traffic study that we performed, but this truck route will actually have all vehicles enter or exit the site, and they will only be able to go right. Is that correct?
All trucks, yes.
All trucks. And that'll be right on Federal Road. They'll go down Federal Road. When they get to Perrineville, they'll make a left on Perrineville and then obviously get out to Route 33 in whatever direction. So there will be no vehicles going to the left onto Tracy Station Road. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And therefore, nothing going through up to 522 in that direction as well.
Correct.
All right. Now, this is not a retail site. This is a very controlled site in the sense that the same drivers are going to be there every day. The same mechanics are going to be there every day. Is there going to be any issue with controlling how these trucks will exit the site with that knowledge?
No, it's the same truck drivers that have the routes. They know their designated truck route to and from the site. Again, we are adding signage at the site so that no trucks may turn left. Everybody must turn right down Federal Road. And all drivers associated or all trucks associated with this, with Esposito Construction will be made on notice that there is an approved truck route and that's the route they have to follow.
Okay. And there are going to be 6 to 8 mechanics that are on site every day?
Correct.
All right. And they will be there from the hours of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday?
Typically the mechanics arrive around 7 and that's when they begin the vehicle maintenance.
Okay.
But yes, they would be during the operating hours, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay. And then on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., we've already stipulated no repairs until 7 p.m.
7 a.m.
7 a.m. And finally, so the maximum number of employees that'll be on this site after these truck drivers leave in the morning is going to be 6 to 8 employees.
Correct.
Okay. I know you mentioned a fluid management plan. I believe that was submitted as one of the exhibits. And is it the testimony of you and the applicant that the applicant will agree to incorporate this fluid management plan into any resolution of approval?
Correct.
Okay, and I think, Mr. Chairman, it's a pretty comprehensive explanation of how we dispose of fluids. I know it's been provided to your engineer, but we have no problem with that being part of any approval. We will abide by that. I don't have any further questions of Mr. Shelley at this point.
Mr. Lupo?
Mr. Sachs, I got a question. I know you said when you leave the property, all trucks have to turn right. What about when they're not on property and they're coming in?
Well, so the same thing would work, Mr. Lupo. So basically, when we say the truck route exiting, it's going to be the same truck route coming in. So if a truck comes in at the end of the day, they'll come down Perrineville or however they're going to get there.
So in other words, they're going to eliminate that Tracy Station.
Correct. That was a concern your engineer specifically had. We don't want any truck
So
vehicles.
in and out, they have to go right, or coming this way, they have to make a left.
Absolutely.
It's 33 to Perrineville to Federal, in or out. That's the route.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And one other thing too, I mean, obviously we occasionally get some deliveries of parts via box truck or small van. Obviously, they wouldn't be restricted either way, but we're concerned more about the trucks, the passenger vehicles that the drivers utilize every day to come in, because they do have their own vehicles. They wouldn't be restricted either.
Did you do a study on the weight limit on that road?
We did.
And what is it?
There is none, and we're gonna give you a comprehensive report, a testimony on that. So, thank you, Mr. Lupo.
Any other board members have questions? Speaker, do you have any, Mr. Tanzi?
Question on the spill containment dikes and secondary containment. Those exist in that building or not? Or they have to be built?
Mr. Tansy, pull the mic closer. Thank you.
Sorry.
The question was, are there containment facilities within the building? You know what? Let me answer that. I'm going to have Mr. Vincenti answer that question, so if that's okay.
We'll wait, we'll wait for, are you bringing him up as a professional?
He's a representative of the company, so he can answer that question if you want at this particular time.
I don't want to jump out of order.
All right.
Mr. Tanzi, please hold your question. We'll get him up. If we have any questions for the gentleman that's up here now that he can answer, we'd like to proceed with that.
Thank you.
Mika, do you have any comments with respect to this gentleman's testimony?
I just have a quick clarification. I do understand I have calculated about 9 variances that are being removed with the changes you've explained today. One point of clarification, I believe the hours of operation might be a waiver requirement because in our ordinance, the requirement for construction operation hours are 7 to, I believe,
Yeah.
8.
That's why
So-
the maintenance, all repairs of vehicles, nothing will occur before 7 o'clock.
Okay.
The 6 a.m. is when a person arrives in their car, they get out of the car, get in their truck, and they leave. There's no maintenance,
no
there's no
construction.
No activities occurring until
They're
Saturday.
getting in their car and they're leaving to go on the road.
All right.
That's the only operation that would occur between 6 and 7.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Well, do you have any comments at this point?
Mr. Chair, if you want me to go through my review letter at this point, or you want to hold off and hear others?
You know, let me get my testimony in if you don't mind,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, because I think there's some traffic. We're going to go over the traffic report, so.
I just asked one clarification. The number of employees again coming to the site?
Well, it's 6 to 8 who are going to be there all day, and then we have the drivers who will come in their passenger vehicle. They'll take their truck, they'll be out all day, and then they'll bring it back.
And what is that number? How many trucks are going to leave the site in the morning?
We had the number at 30 employees, and there are 30 proposed spaces.
30?
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, that's in the proposed description. That's on the title sheet, so it's clear for the record.
That's 30 employees in addition to the 6 to 8 that are all
No.
day, 30
To-
employees
to-
total for the day. Got it. Thank you.
Total.
Mr. Sachs, please.
All right, you know what, I'll hold off on Mr. Consent. Let me go through traffic so we can lighten everybody on traffic. Troutman, thank you.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Jay Troutman, Troutman, McDonough and Ray Associates, 105 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey.
Mr. Troutman, if you can give the board the benefit of your qualifications and professional background.
Counsel, this person testified here before on the oath, so we'll accept his credentials as a professional.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Troutman, if you could give the board the benefit of your analysis of what occurred with respect to the traffic study and conclusion.
Yes, a fully detailed traffic impact study was submitted by Brightview Engineering. The highlights of that study were already mentioned by Mr. Shelley during his testimony, and that being an investigation of all ordinances that are in effect regarding weight restrictions to verify that the truck route that was just presented to you has no weight restrictions. There is one weight restriction of relevance on Federal Road, but it's between Prineville and Applegarth. So anything east of Prineville is not weight restricted, and that's the section where our trucks will be traveling. So Federal, that whole section, no weight restriction, that's depicted on that plan, and then Prineville, no weight restriction. So those are all appropriate segments for trucks to travel on. The study was fairly routine in terms of the driveway capacity analysis. The levels of service or the grading of that driveway is some of the highest grading you can get. It's an A and the B range just because of the limited vehicles that'll be turning in and out of there. The other important thing in terms of traffic is that the peak hours of this driveway are actually much earlier than the roadway peak hours. So this driveway peaks between 6:30 and 7:30, and the roadway peak out there is after that. Same thing, the driveway peaks earlier in the afternoon than the traditional roadway traffic peaks of the adjacent traffic. So you have a favorable pattern in terms of the site peak hour versus the roadway peak hour, and the site peak hour is very low. You heard the operations testimony that was just given. It's a very low usage of the driveway, with all trucking again oriented to and from the west on Federal, as is presented in the exhibit. Based on our review, we feel that the stipulations of this truck route and impact are responsive to some of the concerns you heard at the last hearing, with, I think, a fairly straightforward way of enforcing it by having the same people using the site every day, and obviously all things that would be acceptable in a resolution if the board were to act favorably.
Mr. Troutman, just a couple follow-up questions. At the last hearing, there was I guess, a comment about a culvert and a bridge that's on Prineville Road, not on on Federal Road. There is no weight restriction to go over that culvert as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so basically, from, if you're exiting the site onto Federal Road and you're going west on Federal Road towards Prineville, there is not one indication or one indicia of any weight restriction on that section of road.
That's correct.
And the only weight restriction on Federal Road occurs once you get west of Prineville Road.
Correct.
All right. And an Oprah request was made of the township records and also of the county records to confirm this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just to talk about the peak hours, so our peak hour in the AM is between 6:30 and 7:30. I believe the peak hour in this area in Monroe Township in the morning is between 7:45 and 8:45.
Yes.
So we don't even conflict with that. And the peak hour in the afternoon would be after 4 o'clock when these trucks come back for the day. But the peak hour, again, in Monroe Township on that section of Federal Road is between 3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay. And I think you just elaborated that this is not a retail site. We have the same trucks, same drivers who are there every day, same mechanics there every day. You feel comfortable that we'll be able to self-monitor this site?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions of Mr. Troutman, Mr. Chairman.
Mika, you have no questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Sachs. I would assume you're gonna have trucks there that, this company does snow removal, right? Yeah. Yes? So let's say 11 o'clock at night it starts snowing, what do you do? Now you just passed your curfew at 8 PM.
Well, all right, I'm going to have Mr. Vincenti address that alone. We'll address that, Mr.
All right, thank you.
Mark?
Jay, you indicated that the peak hour for the site is 6:30 to 7:30, I believe, with all the
Yes.
trucks leaving. Did the traffic report analyze that peak hour?
Yes.
And how many trucks are leaving the site in that peak hour based on the traffic report? It seems substantially less than the 30 trucks that were indicated prior to by the engineer.
So the tandem trucks, that would be 20 exiting movements, because there's going to be 20 tandem trucks in the fleet. Those are the drivers that come in and then leave in the truck.
So, I'm sorry, but in the report, it looks like those trucks are making left turns out of the site.
Yes, the traffic study was based on what I would call a natural distribution to other available truck routes. There was a full evaluation of available truck routes, and there are some to the east. So they based the study on that. They assigned some of them as left turns. The left turns, it's a harder move to make. It's the hardest move to make out of a driveway, so it actually makes the capacity worse when you have lefts. Subsequent to that, it was decided that they do not want to take advantage of any truck routes to the east. So that study is superseded by what's being said tonight, is that every turn will be a right turn out. There will be no trucks making lefts.
So,
Let me clarify one other thing, if you don't, Mark. I think we had this report was done before we had your TRC, which I think was just a week, maybe 10 days ago or so. And at that TRC, we had discussions about eliminating going east on Tracy Station. So even though the traffic report talks about two-way movements, we're obviously not going to do that. We don't want to have two-way movements here. We want to avoid any issues with Tracy Station. We understand that there have been accidents over there. We understand that there's been damage to guardrails. We don't want that to happen with us. So.
and I believe there was one yesterday.
Okay,
Well,
so
So, let's talk about that. How is that enforceable? I know you said you're gonna have your same employees and they're gonna know it, but what's stopping that? And like I said yesterday, I believe the low boy stuck up against that guide rail by
Well,
Tracy Station.
good question. I think there's several ways we can enforce that. One of them, first of all, and I think this is a good situation because we really do have the same employees coming in every day. They will know that they can only make a right out, when they're leaving with the vehicle. So we can monitor that. We are going to put signage up there. And certainly we have no objection to any Title 39 enforcement from Monroe Township at that site. So if police vehicle, trust me, I don't think you're ever going to see a vehicle go left, any of our trucks. They're just not going to, because they understand this is the procedure, this is the truck route. But if, God forbid, one of them tries to, you certainly have the protection of Title 39 enforcement, and we have no problem with letting that apply here.
Well, I also don't want to put the township in a position that we got to run around enforcing your
Exactly.
operations. You should be able to control that.
We will, and it's very limited truck movements. I think, Mr. Troutman, how many vehicles do we have coming out in the AM?
20.
20 vehicles. They're going to know they got to go that way every single day. And it will be, believe me, that's not going to be an issue with this applicant, with this employer. I mean, the Esposito Construction Company is a large construction company. They've got other sites throughout the state, and they take these things seriously. So they will monitor. They will be able to self-monitor it to the benefit of the township.
And you'll amend the traffic report?
We can amend it. Absolutely.
Jay, let me ask you, the suitability of the existing roadway for these vehicles, even making a right turn onto Federal Road, heading down Federal, which is a rural roadway, not very wide. How suitable is this roadway to handle the construction vehicles of this type, load boys, dump trucks, whatever they are? Roll-offs, I think you got some roll-offs.
Having driven that section, I find it suitable, especially compared to the routes to and from the east. I think this is definitely the most suitable route to and from this site.
And the trucks maneuvering on the route that you propose, are they able to make all the turns at the intersections? Is there any tight intersections in the route that you propose, making a right onto Federal, down to Prineville, and then out to Route 33?
No.
In fact, Mr. Troutman, just to follow up on that, I think the Federal Road and Prineville intersection was improved a number of years ago, so it's a fairly new intersection. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually worked on that.
Okay, so you know.
That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Mark. Any other board members have any questions? Council, please proceed.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to do noise. So we'll take care of that, and then we'll have Mr. Vincenti follow.
Evening, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
My name is Stephen Ewing, E-W-I-N-G. I work for PS&S. We're an engineering and consulting firm, and I'm based out of our Atlantic City office at 1125 Atlantic Avenue.
Mr. Ewing, if you can give the board the benefit of your qualifications, professional education, and background.
Yes, I have a degree in marine science and oceanography from Stockton University, and worked at the Naval Oceanographic Office as an acoustician doing underwater acoustics and anti-submarine warfare. And during that time was enrolled at University of New Orleans for a master's degree in physics relating to underwater acoustics. And also enrolled at the Naval Postgraduate School in acoustics. I've been a consultant in New Jersey since 1983 and have a certification in community noise control from the state of New Jersey, and have had that certification since 1993 and recertified every 2 years. I've managed an environmental department and been responsible for all the noise and sound work for 23 years with Shorta Palma, and for the last, or since 2018, approximately the last 5 years, with PSNS as a senior director overseeing the noise work for PSNS.
Okay, have you testified before any boards of this nature in this type of scenario, or no?
At boards all over the state, yes.
We'll accept your credentials as a professional.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boy, Shorta Palma, it's a name from the past.
I know.
All right. Mr. Ewing, if you could give the board the benefit of what you were tasked with performing with respect to your noise study, any field measurements you took, and your conclusions.
Yes, we were tasked to identify and measure the existing background sound levels. That would be without the operation running at the subject site, and also take sound levels with the operation running at the site, with the equipment that's out there and various activities, which I'll describe to you. We did our readings on December 27th between 8:30 and 12:40 p.m. During our readings with the activities engaged at the property, there was excavators idling outside of the buildings, diesel pickup trucks also in operation, metal grinding occurring adjacent to the excavator that I spoke of recently, reciprocating saw, cutting metal, hammers banging, pickup trucks driving on the gravel roads, semi trailers driving through the facility, dump trucks driving through the facility, and a bulldozer idling in the main repair building. In our report, we provide the decibel levels and also compare it to the state standards in NJAC 7:29, and the background level, sound levels at 4 different locations, which are the nearest residential property lines on the southwest side of the site, and one location along Federal Road near the entrance to the property on the southeast side of the site. The background sound levels were dominated by not significant amount of traffic on Federal Road, not enough for it to meet the definition of background noise. That's in the state's code, it's defined as intermittent noise, so it's not constant. And those were in the low 40 dBA and high 39 dBA range. And the total noise, that includes all of the sounds from the activities I described earlier. They ranged in the low 40s, just a couple of decibels above the background noise, which is very quiet for any kind of operation. Part of it is the distance from the property line to those activities, and part of it is attenuation of the sound levels through forested areas. Normally, we don't assign much attenuation at all for vegetation. For instance, if someone were to put up a visual barrier of, a 10 or 20 feet of vegetation really has no impact on the sound propagation. However, when you start to look at hundreds of feet of forest, you do get attenuation from that between the receiver and the noise producer. All of the sound levels were in the low 40s with the activities occurring, and all of them meet the state standard. The daytime standard is 65 decibels, and we are 40, 40, 40, and 43.4. In fact, if this were a nighttime operation, it would also meet the nighttime standards, which is 50 decibels at the nearest property line. And 3 out of the 4 are 10 decibels below the nighttime standard, which is a very significant amount because sound levels are measured on a logarithmic scale rather than linear. So a 10 decibel drop is a very significant attenuation of sound. So I would have to describe the sound levels that we recorded out there as being very quiet.
All right, so Mr. Ewing, you're basically running all of this equipment. It basically emitted the maximum decibel readings of around 43. Is that your testimony?
That's correct.
Okay. And during the daytime, the maximum level that could be recorded at a property line before it becomes in violation is 65 decibels.
That's correct.
All right. So we're actually about 33% lower than what the state requirement would be.
I don't agree with that.
Not a little, maybe my math's wrong. Okay.
Only because it's logarithmic,
Right, okay.
okay? So it's a much greater.
Can you please use the microphone?
Sorry.
Okay.
So because the scale is logarithmic, it's a lot more than
So it
33%.
exceeds so even if we just take raw numbers, which would be 33%, from a logarithmic standpoint, it's significantly,
Yes,
okay, significantly lower in noise.
correct.
Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions of this witness.
Again, did you do these tests?
We did our collected noise data between 8:30 in the morning and 12:40 in the afternoon.
So nothing in the afternoon, like from, what was it, 12:40?
8:30 to 12:40.
Nothing before, before 5 o'clock PM?
Nothing at 5 o'clock, just between 8:30 and 12:40.
So-
Mr. Ewing, I'm sorry, Ms. Demian, if you have another question, I'm sorry.
No, so the traffic would be different later on in the day.
Well, there's no traffic on the site during the day. The only activities that are going to
When they're
occur-
leaving.
The only thing that's going to occur during the day would be the repair activities. And that's why we ran the machinery that's associated with the repair activities.
Okay,
So basically, between the hours of, say, 7 a.m. and 4 p.m., the only activity is going to be the repair garage. And that's the noise we're looking to measure.
okay, thank you.
Lou?
Page 3-4, table 1. Background sound levels, the site's not in operations, correct?
That's correct.
Total corrected, all of these things on page 2-3 are occurring.
That's correct.
So point 1 and 4, what this is telling me is running all of this stuff is actually making it more quiet on the street than not having that stuff running.
That's not correct. However,
Correct me.
However, in 7:29, the state noise control ordinance law, we are required to go through a correction for meter tolerances when we evaluate this. So it appears that it's quieter, but the corrected level is not the level that the meter read. It is using the math in the state law that requires us to use to give you that number for compliance purposes, which determines whether you exceed the state standard.
So it may not be more quiet.
Oh, it's not more quiet. It's at minimum, it's the same. In this case, it was probably 43, and the math that we are required to do when we're evaluating a noise source results in us reporting what comes out of the formula as opposed to what we measured in the field. And the difference is usually just 1 or 2 decibels. And in this case, at location 1, it's 3 decibels. At locations 2, it's a little higher. At location 3, it's a little higher. And at location 4, it's 2 decibels.
Okay, let's go down that road since you opened the door. So location 2 and 3, we're seeing an increase in the decibels.
Yes.
So theoretically, according to this formula, it actually might even be louder, correct? If the formula is reducing decibels on 1 and 4, does that mean it also reduced them on 2 and 3?
Yes.
So that's actually, that number could be higher, that decibels could be higher on 2 and 3.
They were higher.
Okay,
Yeah,
do we
the
have those?
actual reading is higher, but the determination of whether it
I get it.
exceeds the standard or not is based on this number. However, it's not a significant difference when you go through the math. They're not taking 10 decibels off of this because the program at the state that wrote these rules the purpose of it is to provide a quiet and serene environment for the residents of the state.
So according to the algorithm, not you, having the business operating is beneficial noise-wise than not having it operating.
I wouldn't testify to that, no. I would say it's not going to have a significant impact. It's not going to,
Well, it's a 9%. And again, logarithmically, it's even more than 9%, which you just said before. Decrease, according to the formula and whatever you're reporting on this table.
we're not suggesting it's decreasing the sound level. This table is us providing you with the corrected sound levels. That's why we listed as corrected instead of sound levels that have to be used to determine whether it complies with the state ordinance or not.
Okay, but the
Okay.
sound levels are showing a decrease in decibels. Now, you can put the word corrected on there, I get it.
Okay?
That gets you get out of jail free card there, but it's showing a decrease in 2 locations by running a bulldozer, a dump truck, a bunch of pickup trucks, a semi truck, a reciprocating saw, banging and hammering on metal grinding wheel, a diesel pickup truck with a welder idling, and an excavator idling, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just so the board is aware, because I think Mr. Masters had some good questions, but, you know, we have to demonstrate that we are not exceeding the state noise limitations at property lines. And at a property line, during the daytime, anything under 65 decibels is acceptable, and in the evening, it's 50 decibels. So I guess,
Can I ask this?
sure.
Now, this might be inappropriate. Was it over 65 before the formula was applied?
No.
Okay.
And I'd also like to clarify a little bit more about the human ear and our perception of decibels. So if we were to have a source in the room here and we played a source at 40 decibels in the back of the room and turned it off and played that source again, the human ear can't distinguish the sound levels from 40 to 43 decibels. Beyond 3 decibels, you start to be able to determine that one is higher than the other. The human ear can't really detect that small of a change. And when I'm talking about the logarithmic measurements of sound, it's measuring sound pressure levels. And the human ear is not nearly as sensitive as the instruments we're using. So that's where the sound power levels are increasing, but that's not the same as the human ear's ability to pick those sounds up and distinguish between one sound level and another.
Thank you.
Right, so in summary, Mr. Ewing, then, I guess you gave us a very comprehensive report here and comprehensive testimony. I'm sorry, yes. So we are in compliance with the noise standards in the state of New Jersey at property lines?
Yes, we are.
Okay, all right, I have no further questions.
Mika, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ewing, just following up on Ms. Damiani's question, I believe the study was done on December 27th between 8:30 to 12:40, but we've been told the business operations would be from, I believe, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Does the, I mean, is it your testimony that, the vehicles returning, the welding shop and engineering repair shop that's happening around 4 p.m. would be at the same decibel levels and complying with the state
Yes.
ordinance? Okay.
Especially those activities inside the buildings, because the buildings are acting as a sound barrier.
And what about those dump trucks and lowboys coming back to the site at 8 p.m.?
Our sound levels included semi-trucks and dump trucks traveling on that driveway through the facility.
During
So-
the
so-
nighttime?
Excuse me?
During the nighttime, because the study was 8:30 a.m. to 12:40 p.m. I'm talking about during 4:15 to 8 p.m. Would it still comply?
Yeah, the noise levels wouldn't change because of the time of day.
Okay.
The criteria changes at nighttime. Nighttime doesn't start till 10 o'clock at night, and it goes until 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Thank you. And the other question, I'm guessing, I don't remember, but December 27th was a weekday, Tuesday. Would, in your expert knowledge, would the same apply and it'll comply during the Saturday operation hours? Because I believe the
Yes.
business is to operate on Saturdays.
Yeah, the state standard doesn't change on the weekends.
And the noise levels don't matter because the traffic is less or anything of that sort.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark, any questions?
Yes. So on page 2-3 of the report, I believe you're stating that with all this equipment operating, the operation of the equipment, machinery, and vehicles on the site, it didn't contribute to any of the total sound levels at the two locations? Is that what you're saying? That it didn't add anything?
That's correct.
Okay. But there is noise being produced at the site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you do any kind of analysis for the proposed operation that they're proposing before the board? With the number of vehicles, all the equipment that they're proposing?
We use the noise generation of these items specifically listed on page 2-3 to try to reproduce the activities that would be occurring on the site after the approval.
Okay, but the dump trucks are all leaving the site in the morning. You're gonna have many vehicles coming and going first thing in the morning. Any kind of analysis of that being done?
Just the sound level readings that we took of the trucks going up and down the driveway, which I think would be the same as the trucks going up and down the driveway in the morning.
So the point I'm getting at is you analyzed it today with some vehicles there, but they're proposing a full operation at the site. There's going to be more vehicles on the site. It's going to be more operational. You're going to have more employees coming to the site.
Oh, we have a limit of the number of vehicles. I think we testified to that. It's on the plan. So, we limit the number of vehicles, we limit the number of employees we have there. And all of these trucks don't leave at the same time. So it's not like you have an aggregate of 20 vehicles creating noise at the same time. It's not possible.
The operation today is not what you're proposing, correct?
Well, the operation today is, we are doing some repairs there. We do have some vehicles there. The only difference is, obviously, we're going to have truck drivers coming in the morning, getting with their passenger vehicles, getting their trucks and then leaving. So I think the analysis that was provided was just to demonstrate that the decibel readings of operating the maximum or the noisiest piece of equipment is 43 decibels.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. Is all that equipment on the site already? All this equipment that you're proposing, is all this at the site being operated?
No, it's not all being
So,
operated now, but
how did you do the
brought it
noise
to the
study
site.
if all the equipment wasn't
well, we
there?
brought it to the site for purposes of doing the study. That's what we
And,
did.
and it's my understanding that all the equipment that would be brought to the site, operations of maintenance that are going to occur on that are going to be primarily done inside the buildings. And if operations are occurring outside the building, we try to account for that by having grinding wheels and saws operate outside the building, because there was you could not hear anything going on in the building. When activities occurred in the building at the property lines, we were unable to detect when it was on and off, other than being on the phone with the people in the building, hearing on the phone that it was in operation, hang up the phone, the meter did not detect any change in decibel levels.
Okay. Generally for the site, adding buffers with landscaping and berming, does that reduce the sound levels at the property line?
It's forested out there now between the property lines and the source. So I don't think landscaping would do anything. And I've worked on numerous projects where attempts or it's needed to meet the standard to introduce berms or some kind of sound deadening barriers. And berms can work, walls can work. I've never been part of a project where they've been installed when you're at or below the standard.
But generally, that would reduce noise emanating from the site, general.
Yes.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other board members? Seeing there's none, please continue.
Okay, I'm just going to call my last witness, Mr. John Vincent.
If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
My name is John Vincenti, Vincenti. I'm an employee of Esposito Construction in Level 10. My address is 24 Merchants Way, Colts Neck, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Mr. Vincenti, just a couple of questions. I know a question came up from one of the board members about containment facilities within the building. And I know that you actually also authored this fluid maintenance or the environmental health and safety standard operating procedures for vehicle maintenance. Is that correct?
Well, that's not something that I necessarily authored. I think it is a document. It's a living document that most recently was revised in November of 2022. It applies to the company. It's a standard operating procedure, one of the many that the company has. But it's really pertinent to this facility, as well as you did hear testimony that the intent is to perform the vast majority of the vehicle maintenance at the site that the company works at. So I can give. What I'll do is just read the majority of it into the record, so the board kind of understands what all of our maintenance employees are tasked with. They're supposed to understand this document. They're given this document. They're trained in this document. All of our maintenance staff are familiar with this. Our safety teams are familiar with this, and all of our project managers on the sites are familiar with this. This is part of the many standard operating procedures that they have to abide by. In the scope, this SOP, standard operating procedure, applies to all maintenance yards, including maintenance activities at all ancillary construction site operations affiliated with Esposito Construction. So what this means, it applies to our maintenance, our main maintenance facility, as well as those on-site locations. That's what is intended to refer to as ancillary. Standard specifications. Employees are to conduct vehicle maintenance operations only in designated areas. Whenever possible, perform all maintenance and equipment maintenance activities at an indoor location with a paved floor. All ancillary locations, at ancillary locations, work should be performed on paved surfaces if practicable. Those are the job sites. The intent is to contain spills, not get them into dirt. Always use drip pans. Always use properly marked waste fluid containers for used fluid recycling and or disposal. Absorbent spill cleanup materials shall be available in maintenance areas and maintenance vehicles and shall be disposed of properly after use. What this means is if our maintenance guys don't have the materials in their vehicle for use, they are subject to discipline. Maintenance areas shall be protected from stormwater run on and run off and shall be located at least 50 feet from downstream drainage facilities and water courses. Use portable tents or roofing devices over long-term maintenance areas that must be performed outdoors. The sum and substance of this section is all vehicle repairs are to be done indoors where possible. The only time it's not possible on this site is on those larger vehicles that don't fit inside the building. Last week we were at the building. There were 8 vehicles inside. The size of those vehicles range from small skid steers to dozers. Okay, all our dump trucks fit in the facility. The only large vehicles that don't are pans, which are generally serviced either at site or at Jesco because they're very specialized, or some of the larger excavators. Again, they will be serviced on site. If they can't be serviced on site, 50% of the time they go off site to a subcontractor. The other 50% they come inside, and basically what they do is they take the arms apart and whatever they can work on inside, they do. Section 4, waste management, spill prevention, containment, and countermeasures, pollution control. Do not dump or dispose oil, grease, fluids, and lubricants onto the ground. Do not dump or dispose batteries, used oils, antifreeze, and other toxic fluids into the storm drain or water courses. Don't bury tires. Collect waste fluids in properly labeled containers and dispose of properly. Where practical, waste oil shall be utilized in appropriately designed building heating devices. There is a facility where we recycle waste oil for our heating device in that building. Item 5, spill response and reporting. Provide spill containment dikes or secondary containment around stored oils and other fluid storage containers and drums. Immediately notify the Esposito safety team in the event of a spill. Conduct cleanup of any fuel spills immediately after discovery. Spills are to be cleaned using dry cleaning methods only. Spills shall be cleaned up with a dry absorbent material, for example, kitty litter or sawdust, and the rest of the area is to be swept clean. Collected waste is to be disposed of properly. Maintenance inspection is the final section. Periodically check for leaks and damaged equipment and make repairs as necessary. Every Monday we have actually every day at 9 o'clock we have a PM call. Mondays we go over all the maintenance that needs to be done. This is the company Bible. If you don't follow the Bible, you're subject to discipline by your PM or Matt or Scott. This is what our guys are supposed to live. With respect to vehicle fluid maintenance management, right on the site plan there are three notes that were added to the site plan in direct response to Mr. Rasimowicz's initial engineering review. Note 17, on-site fuel storage facilities are not proposed. Fuel deliveries will be provided by a direct fleet fueling service provider. There are no fuel tanks on this property. Therefore, there is no secondary containment of fuel tanks required at this facility. Fuel is not proposed here. If fuel is necessary, we have a fleet supplier that comes in and will provide us with the fuel necessary for the vehicles that are primarily being maintained here. General note 18, one on-site IBC tote for diesel exhaust fluid, DEF, which is a 330-gallon sized container, shall be provided inside the main repair shop building. That's there now. Note 19 on the plan. Multiple 25-gallon containers shall be provided inside the main repair shop building for used oil, used antifreeze, and other used vehicle fluids. Same shall be serviced by a fleet service provider specializing in fluid recovery and recycling. That's what we propose. That's basically what is supposed to be being done at that facility. If it's not, again, the guys will be disciplined.
Right, and more importantly, Esposito has no problem with incorporating this into any resolution of approval.
It's already on the plans. Get added to a resolution approval. That's why we provided the board with this November 22 SOP.
Okay.
There was a question about snow removal. The first question was, does the company provide snow removal services? The answer is yes. However, the snow removal vehicles are not going to be stored or staged at this area. They were stored at our other facility on Waterworks Road in Old Bridge. We have 3 locations where we have vehicles. We have the Federal Road Maintenance Facility, and then we have 2 truck parking yards on Waterworks Road in the Waterworks Road area in Old Bridge. In addition to that, at the corner of Waterworks Road, we have a Class B recycling facility where all of our crushing is done. There's a concrete plant on that site, and our crushing is done in Old Bridge. We also have portable licensed crushers. That crushing is done on some of our sites. There will be no crushing at this location. There was never any intent to be crushing at this location. In the prior planner's outline, what he attempted to describe is the various services that our company performs. It was not 100% clear, and there was some confusion as to whether we would be performing those crushing services here. We do not intend to add that at any time in the future at this facility.
Thank you, Mr. Vincenti. I have no further questions.
Any board members? Mr. Lupo?
I was the one that brought the question up regarding the snow removal. I was the one that brought the question up regarding snow removal. You addressed it. What happens, let's say a dump truck that you have a plow on breaks down? I would assume this is the place that we're talking about in question that goes to get fixed.
Yes.
So the truck is fixed. That evening it snows. Do you leave it there, or you go and you get it, put it on the road?
When it's fixed, it'll be moved during the daytime to the yard up in Old Bridge and staged with all the other snow removal equipment.
So if it gets fixed 7, 8 o'clock at night,
It won't be fixed at 7 o'clock at night. The shop will be closed at that time.
okay. So that's
All our vehicles, once they're fixed or when they're going to be either brought to the site or taken from the site, vehicles for repair will be moved during those hours of operation. Okay, if it can't be moved out, before the closing hour, it waits till the next day.
okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Any other board members?
Chair,
Mr. Tanner?
question, is this facility sewer or septic? Is
Septic.
it septic? Yes?
Yes, septic.
How do you, wash up and, things like that with antifreeze, you're not planning on dumping antifreeze into a sink or anything like that, are you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, we do have containers for that. That's part of our standard operating procedure. We have disposal containers there. And nothing is going into the septic system. And I think there was a question, I think even Mark had in his report about number of employees. We have 6 to 8. There was a question about the number of employees. We really only have 6 to 8 employees who are going to be using the bathroom facilities. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You made mention about a project manager. Is there someone of that caliber on site, or is that someone who makes routine rounds to different locations?
So generally, each site is managed by a project manager. Most of our project managers run multiple sites, 2, 3, or 4, depending upon the size. The main guy, there's a head mechanic on this site. He is the equivalent of a project manager. So he's responsible for establishing, and making sure the rules and regulations are followed, establishing what vehicles get worked on first, prioritizing things, and delegating the work. We also have a fleet manager in that facility. He again coordinates really with our off-site project managers for their daily and weekly needs with respect to maintenance. And between the fleet manager would basically make a decision as to whether or not that vehicle can be serviced at site or has to be brought back into the shop.
I think I'm referring to a project manager based on your description of any accidental spillage or anything of that nature where that person has oversight or some type of formal training, not about how we go about what truck's going to be worked on first.
So as I said, this document refers to not only this facility on Federal Road, but all of our job sites and all of our other locations. So if there's a spill, whatever it may be, the first point, and is one of the employees, one of the laborers is supposed to notify his supervisor, who's a project manager. That project manager then implements these standard operating procedures. He's to call our safety team, and they're to implement whatever spill management is necessary at that period of time.
So do any of those people who respond from your internal office, are they any HAZWOP or hazmat trained in any aspect? Because you mentioned a lot of containment equipment. So I'm assuming there should be some training that accompanies that.
Our safety teams train that. They basically train for OSHA standards.
So they have an OSHA 10 or a 30?
They're I'm pretty sure they're 30. Yeah, they're all
Normal
30.
construction is OSHA 30.
They're all 30.
And you said there's no gasoline or diesel fuel. Are we operating anything that requires propane?
No, not
Nope.
at this facility. No.
I have no questions. Any other board members? Mark?
Chairman, you have an asphalt plant, you said, Waterworks Road,
It's a concrete plant.
concrete plant.
Yeah.
So the dump trucks are gonna leave this site and head to that site
No.
to pick up concrete or no?
No, there's a fleet of trucks up in that location, up in Waterworks.
Okay, and they'll be coming to this site in Monroe? No.
No.
Okay. I was gonna say, what's the truck route from that site in Old Bridge to this site?
Route 33, Perrine to Federal.
How do they get to Route 33? Are they coming down? You're
Nine.
saying they're gonna go all the way
Route
down
9,
9 to 33 to Prineville?
Absolutely.
Well, you
Okay.
did indicate in some paperwork Texas Road.
Yes.
There is clear definitive language that Texas Road was a means to get there.
I think what happened was at the TRC, there was one truck route that was presented at the TRC 10 days ago. And then in response to comments from that TRC, there was a second truck route that was provided, and that was the exhibit that was introduced by Kevin Shelley this year.
So you're eliminating all the other routes, again, mentioned in the traffic report?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
So Texas Road is off the plate, is that correct?
Yes.
As well as Buccalo.
Yes.
Um,
None of the roads you want us to be on.
I don't know, if
That document
environmental,
also shows all of the legal weight restricted roads in red. What they did is they pulled all of the township's ordinances with respect to weight restriction. And the intent was to demonstrate where those weight restrictions are, as opposed to rely on third-party assumptions.
environmental assessment, you did a phase 2, and I believe there's some areas of concern. How are they addressed?
I think we provided a,
There was an EIS that was provided. I don't know where you're getting the fact that there's some phase 2.
Note that there was 3 areas identified, 3 areas of concern.
In what document was that?
Page 9 of your environmental assessment.
While you're looking for that paperwork, have you guys in the past have any spills? Have had any spills that you have all this gear and equipment and training?
At this location, no.
Not at this location, just in general, your
General?
company as a whole. At what given point have you had a spill?
I can't answer that question. I'm not familiar with that.
yeah, I mean, obviously, there have been spills at construction sites, I'm sure. And obviously, there's a response team that's got to deal with it. Got to deal with it, report it. This particular site is really a limited site. I mean, it's just going to be for repairs of vehicles. The only fluids that are going to be associated would be vehicle fluids for the most part, and we certainly have the containment facilities for that. This is something that the applicant takes very seriously. If there is a spill, they do have a response team, and they'll be on site, and they'll be on site immediately. So,
Mark, if I may,
Item O?
in the Trident Environmental EIS, is that what you're referring to?
Trident.
yeah.
Okay.
Item O.
So there were I would refer to that as potential area concerns. All soil and groundwater samples collected during the phase 2 were below NJDEP soil remediation standards and groundwater quality standards. There was a modified phase 1 to phase 2 that was done. It included GPR. It included water sampling, groundwater sampling. All those samples came back below the standard. There were some anomalies that the GPR found. There were probably on the order of 7 or 8. We excavated all of them, and it was all basically like scrap metal. Some small pipes. The site, had historically been filled, and those were found. There were no underground storage tanks. There were no large, no buried vehicles, things of that nature. It was all really like all on the surface, Mark.
So you did further investigation in those areas, and they came back, they met the standards.
As part of the phase 1, phase 2. Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. I think that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, I can go through your report, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Please
Do you have any
proceed.
other, sorry.
No, I'm
We have
sorry.
no other witnesses.
No other witnesses?
We're done.
No other questions from board members? Dr. Payne?
If I may, I'm a little confused. Seriously, how do your trucks get refueled?
On site.
Site.
All the time, you know what I'm saying?
Off site, yes. Our generally our sites have fuel storage facilities at the job site.
Site.
Yes.
Exactly. And but there's no refilling at this site.
There will be an occasion where a fuel delivery company will come and directly refuel, but the trucks don't get fueled. The trucks will not get refueled at this site.
Okay, and all your trucks are brand new?
Most of them are new,
I'm
yes.
I'm saying that because, it's like older trucks do leak. Okay, and now I'm saying, what happens, it's like sometimes that goes unknown, it's like it's not seen, and over time, you have some trucks that are leaking, and, it's like, and the same thing, if you do have a spill at some point and they try to clean it up, is the soil retested to make sure that there is no contaminants in the area?
If it's necessary, yes, they will be tested.
And
As
who
far as
determines when it's necessary?
our safety team and our PMs will come out and see if there's, they'll do a spill response, and if it's required, the site, the vast majority of the sites that we work on are not owned by us, so they are under supervision of those property owners, those developers. They have their own personnel there. It's not something that will be hidden. It will be obvious that there's a spill response, and it'll have to be taken care of properly. If a hotline report is necessary, it'll occur. But we're not talking about what happens at this site. Those instances happen at off-site projects unrelated to federal road. Now, our guys are supposed to inspect their vehicles on a regular basis to ascertain if there are any maintenance problems. Okay, that's part of their job as a driver. Okay, just like it's part of anybody's job as a driver to check all tires to see if your vehicle is roadworthy. Okay, we teach our guys that they're supposed to treat the company vehicles as if it's their own. Some guys don't maintain their own personal vehicles. There's only so much basically you could do, but there's a zero tolerance policy instituted. I'll give you an example of one guy. He was brought in on his first day to be a lowboy driver. This happened about 2 months ago. He came to the jobs to our office his first day of training. Okay, his personal vehicle was leaking fluid. He backed his car out, and he hit our CFO's vehicle. That individual was terminated on the spot. Those are the types of things that we do as a company. It was determined that person couldn't take care of his own personal vehicle, so we made the determination that he wasn't capable of maintaining our company vehicles. Those are the things that we do on a regular basis. If you're a responsible business, those are the hard decisions that you have to make, and our people do that.
Carol?
A quick question on there's the letter from the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, January 5th, 2023. Did you find any rare wildlife or plants or anything within that 1 mile
No.
from the site?
No, that's basically a national inventory that's done in preparation of doing wetlands delineations. There's no threatened or endangered on the site.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Tanzi?
Will they have a stormwater?
Use your mic, please.
Will they have a stormwater management plan on hand at that site?
No, I think Kevin, actually, I can answer that, but I don't need the engineer. We're not doing any additional improvements on the site, so we're not required to do any additional stormwater management.
We all good? I think you're gonna refer to Mark's letter.
I am.
Let's start with stormwater management.
Okay.
Let's start with stormwater management.
Okay.
I believe you are required to provide stormwater management, and I'd like to see the plans and your arguments as to why you're not required.
I'll I'll defer to my engineer. We are requesting a waiver, so.
If there is stormwater management that's required by township ordinance, or there's, again, site is currently paved, or it's, the limit of disturbance that creates new impervious cover or disturbance, again, it's not a major development. The only impervious area being added is the handicap parking spaces that are being converted from gravel to pavement. There is no other disturbance proposed as part of the application. If the runoff generated by the paving of the two handicap parking spaces creates additional runoff, then that'll be addressed. But I don't believe any runoff is created as part of this application.
So rather than sit here and talk technical stormwater for the next couple hours, my recommendation, if the application was to move forward and get approved, I do not recommend a waiver at this point, and it's something that could be addressed if they were to get preliminary approval, it could be addressed prior to final.
We're okay with that. By the way, I didn't mean to be an engineer when I responded to you. That's why I have my engineer. All right, so, Mr. Chairman, if you want, I'll just go through Mr. Razumovic's report. It's dated today, January 31st. I looked it over because I compared it to his March report. A lot of his comments in the March report were eliminated, but let me get to the substantive aspects of it. I think paragraph 2 on page 2 of 5, I think we've addressed all of those questions that came up about where the facilities are, whether we're doing any crushing, snow removal services, et cetera. I think we've also indicated how many employees. B, I think we addressed that with the planning testimony at the last hearing. Paragraph C, D, E, F.
With respect to F,
Go ahead.
at the hearing back in November, we had requested a waiver from or providing roadway improvements along Federal Road, including widening, curbing, sidewalk lighting, landscaping, due to the fact that the wetlands along Federal Road are located right behind the current limit of pavement. We are providing a right-of-way dedication so that there can be a full 50-foot right-of-way along the frontage. Right now, the road is 20-foot wide. Any pavement widening along Federal Road would require wetlands permitting to fill in wetlands along the street, which is the reason why we are requesting the waiver from those improvements.
Chairman, generally, I mean, this is in a rural residential farmland preservation zone, so typically it's not an area that we would install curbs and sidewalks. And the board would usually vote in favor of the contribution in lieu of the actual improvements being installed for the curb and sidewalks.
Yeah, I think that's an I, and
That'd be item I.
I think we understand that. I think we.
Yeah, I think this comment and I overlap, but I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that no improvements were being made due to the wetlands.
All right, Kevin, while you're up here, why don't we just address G and H, if you don't mind?
Yeah, same thing. G and H. G is regarding to grading. There is no proposed changes to the site improvements that are there now. The loading zone is currently paved. We're going to restripe that. The only proposed disturbance would be paving the handicap parking spaces, striping those. The trash enclosure would be built over top of existing impervious area. So nothing that would be requiring grading. If there was a grading plan needed to address the septic plans, we would provide that. But there's no other disturbance on this site that would require a grading plan. But if there ultimately is any disturbance, we would provide something, but nothing is proposed.
So I know you keep talking that the site is, you're just showing up to the site and everything's existed the way it's existed. It hasn't. It's been changed. You've been out there, you've worked it, you've done some regrading, you've moved some material around, I believe. And there may have been some operations done prior to you coming in there, but post 2004. that created some areas that were filled or graded. My concern is stormwater runoff, and the grading. So I think a grading plan would go hand in hand with a stormwater plan.
So that would be something.
A grading plan
For final?
Yes.
grading plan to see what is currently going on is what you're referring to?
Well, for instance, if you've had areas that were filled over this time period, there may have been, are you saying that Esposito has not done any work on this site or regraded or moved any dirt around on this property?
I can say is I can only show we have that's surveyed. If something was done before the time that we surveyed it, I don't have the means to provide you a grading plan to do it. Again, we could talk about this offline. I'll provide you whatever I can provide, but there's certain things
So
that go
again, I
back.
would not recommend a waiver of a grading plan at this point, but something that can be entertained between preliminary and final. Also, a landscaping plan, same. I would not recommend a waiver at this point. Like to see what you have going on out there as far as landscaping, supplemental landscaping. If it's all deciduous trees, we would look for some supplemental evergreens to be provided. You are, I think, asking for relief of the buffer along the frontage, so that's something we want to take a look at more closely. So again, I wouldn't recommend that waiver at the time of preliminary.
Okay. That's fine. All right, I think we understand we have to make a contribution. We understand that. J, I think we've discussed what the uses of the buildings are and the paved areas. K, I guess we'll get you a floor plan. That's not a problem. Were they submitted? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it's not a problem then. All right, in terms of L, I think we've indicated that really we're only going to have the 6 to 8 mechanics there on a daily basis. Those really the only ones who are going to be utilized.
Have you received the health department approval of your septic system?
Not yet.
But you are providing that?
Yes. We're putting a new septic system in. Yeah,
Okay.
I understand. M on fencing. I don't think there's any fencing proposed right now. We may in the future want to put some fencing up. Certainly if we do that, we'll comply with whatever the ordinance is with respect to fencing. And if in fact the board acts favorably, if we deal with it at that time of final.
Well, I think that was an item we discussed at the last hearing a little bit. How do we keep from further encroaching into the sensitive areas if there's no fencing around the perimeter of your site where you park the vehicles? So that's fencing we would be looking for.
Okay, that's fine. I think we addressed your stormwater, all right, in paragraph 3. Let's see, paragraph 4 deals with parking and traffic. I know A, we actually have a driveway that's in excess of what you require, but it's probably something that's particularly useful for this particular site, so we would be requesting a design exception on that.
I have no problem with that design exception, Mr. Chairman. That's a typical, our ordinance indicates only a 35-foot wide driveway. That's a typical design exception we approve.
All right, I think we addressed B last time, which was curbing on the driveways. I did have a note I had a comment in my notes about bumper stops in lieu of curbing, and we're certainly willing to do that for the parking spaces. So we're seeking a waiver on that. C, we're seeking a variance. We've discussed that already. D is not a problem, Kevin?
D, we're asking a waiver for not paving the entire parking area. We're only paving the handicapped accessible vehicle spaces. The other employee parking spaces are going to be on the current existing gravel.
Okay. E, we've agreed to do 10 by 20 parking stalls, and we'll also reduce the number from 32 to 20. F,
The utility pole was relocated, so F is not applicable.
okay. G is EV spaces. I think we don't have any choice on that, so we'll provide some make-ready EV spaces based on state law now, not even local ordinance, it's state law. I think H, we've had some extensive discussion about the route, and we would agree that that could be part of any approval. The environmental, paragraph 5, we did provide an environmental impact statement, so we're not asking a waiver for that. We did provide it.
Have you gone to the Environmental Commission yet?
We have not. We'll have to do that.
So again, I would just say, should it get preliminary approval tonight, that you go before the Environmental Commission prior to coming back for final.
We will do that. That's fine. Let's see, the DEP, the freshwater wetlands, we understand we do have to get delineation on that, so. Let's see, conservation easements, we have no problem with, actually, Kevin, what about conservation easements?
Again, if it's required by township ordinance to comply with it, then
Okay,
we would agree to it.
all right, 6A, obviously, we understand you won't grant a waiver for a landscaping plan at this time. We'll obviously deal with that between preliminary and final. B, 6B, we'll revise, yeah, whatever revisions need to be made to the plans for the lighting. I think that's it.
I can just back up on item 4D. The parking areas, what is the material? If you're not paving, what are you putting down?
What's there now, it's just compacted gravel that's been driven on and used for storage.
So my concern I'm coming from is dust control. And if you're gonna have vehicles driving over this, is the material, does it create dust?
That's why as a main source of that is why we had that front 350 feet of the driveway out to Federal Road being paved so that there was no kind of trafficking in and out of the site. So that was being paved over top of the existing surface there now. The site is not, I would say, is not dusty. It's again, if there's an issue with the dust control exceeding any type of ordinance, that's something that we would have to address. But the surface is very compact.
Okay, and the last thing are township hours of operation are 7 a.m. start. You're requesting a 6 a.m. start.
No, we're requesting our activities, which is the repair garage, will start at 7 a.m. The only activity that will be occurring is employees arriving at the site, possibly prior to 7. But none of the repair activities, nothing else will occur until 7.
So are you saying that no trucks and dump trucks or lowboys will be leaving the site until 7 a.m.?
Oh, no, they'll be leaving earlier. They're probably going to leave around 6:30, but that's not our main activity. That's associated with our business, but our main activity at this site is the repair garage.
That still is a concern, so
Well, if that's
just wanted
the
to
case,
get it clear for the record what you're asking for.
okay. Well, if that's the case, then we'd be seeking a waiver on that.
And that could happen as early as 6 a.m.
Yeah, employees would arrive at 6, but I think our testimony earlier was really the trucks don't leave until about 6:30.
Okay, just want to get it clear for the record what you're asking
I
for,
understand.
because as you know, you're looking for a use variance, so,
We understand.
thanks, Sharon.
Any other questions? Any other testimony?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing there's none, I think before we get to the public portion, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess. We will reconvene at 8:20, okay? Thank you. Everyone find your seats, please. Thank you. The zoning board meeting is now back in session. We are going to open it up to the public portion with respect to this application and this application only. I'm going to ask everyone in the public to please, if you're not up at the podium or at the mic, to please refrain from any outbursts or speaking out or out of turn. Everyone will have a chance. I'm also going to ask the public if we can reduce our repetitive questions. Everyone has free ability to come up here. But if we're going to ask, is a truck driving on the road 42 times, that kind of doesn't make sense at this point. Everyone will have an opportunity to come up. If someone already asked the question, please cross it off your list and hit us with another one, or ask the board with another one. Okay, saying that, I'm going to open it to the public. Anyone in the public wishing to be heard on this application, please raise your hand. You'll be acknowledged. We'll call you up and we'll go from there. Gentlemen with hands up first, come on up.
You could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
What the truth?
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Hans Wilden, W-I-L-D-E-N.
Bring that mic a little bit closer to you.
Your address, sir.
34 Federal.
Thank you, sir.
Please proceed, sir.
Okay, thank you. Traffic. A little concerned about the traffic, the study. Concerned about the traffic study. Now that everybody's gonna make a right out of his driveway, right? It's gonna be policed, correct? We all know they're gonna make a right. What happens when Gasco opens up in about a month? Thousands of cars waiting to get in. Just a question. Police are out there all the time. Lights are going. Okay. Hours of operation. I've been there 43 years. I was told to start at 7, stop at 6. Why would we want to change that? This is a residential area. What happened to the quality of life on Federal Road when they come in? Something to think about. Just imagine if you folks lived next to him. Residential area. Okay, then we're gonna go lights. They're gonna light that place up like a ball field? I didn't hear nothing about lights.
It was mentioned. It's in the report.
Yeah. Okay. What about a wash pit? Like Foley on Route 33 when they bring the heavy equipment in? Because sometimes that equipment's full of mud. And you gotta take a track off. How you gonna get to the bolts? You gotta wash it. Where's that water coming from? Where's the water going to? Wash pit. Environmental. The other thing I have concern about, it says here, environmental materials they're gonna bring in and take out. What's that all about? What are we starting, a recycle yard? Oh, first it was industrial yard, now we're gonna start recycling. Okay. Quality of life. 20-some trucks every morning making a right-hand turn up Federal Road. I don't think the neighbors gonna like that. Well, they really don't have much choice, right? Because you voted down. Oh, one more thing. Township spent a lot of money on that master plan, right? Master plan. Doesn't say anything about changing the zoning down there. Still residential, 10 acre. Quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman with his hand up, please come forward.
Good evening. Could you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
My name is Hans Wilden, Wilden, 44 Federal Road. Okay. I would like to just let you guys know, okay, the Wilden family has been in this town over 4 decades. This is our home. We live 44, 34, 24 Federal Road, right next to this facility. Okay. And we were talking about water and drainage, and it's fantastic because it's a swamp. It's a residential swamp area, and we always have to deal with water. Nobody ever thought about the drainage of New Beginnings Way in Manalapan. Tons of engineers. Sandy came, and the water came right through the swamp into Federal Road. Thank God that the pitch was just right. It flooded everybody else but ours. What happens if they change something there? Who's going to be responsible for that? When our house gets flooded, our property gets flooded, okay? I grew up on 34 Federal Road. I rode my bike down that road. It was 50 miles an hour, right? Nobody ever cared. I rode my bike. I have my family. But let me tell you, they changed it to 35 because there's a lot of accidents. It's a big traffic area. Gasco's has a lot of people coming in now, right? I think I got the bus at 7:15 in the morning, right? That's the same time 30 dump trucks are going to go down that road. What about the buses? What about the children? We're going to be 3 generations in that house. I got to worry about my niece and nephew trying to get the bus with 30 dump trucks running down that street. Listen, as a child, when one went down the street, I got scared. They talk about noise levels. Okay. I've heard an empty dump truck hit a pothole. That's the loudest thing you've ever heard. It sounds like an explosion. I don't want to hear 30 dump trucks hitting potholes at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll tell you what, Gas is going to hear it because that bridge that we talked about has more potholes than the entire road. I'm surprised that bridge is still standing. What happens when that breaks? Are we going to fix it? From my understanding, that's county. I don't understand how it doesn't have a weight limit. That's absurd to me, right? We grew up here. We love this area. We're going to stay here. I'm a product of Monroe. My family works with Monroe. My mother works in the school system, right? This is our lives. My grandparents came from another country with nothing, and my father created a business and gave us something. That's what Monroe and Federal Road is for us. And the plan that's happening right now tells me that we may not have, if approved, the home that I had when I was a child. At 6 o'clock at night on a hot summer night, you walk outside, everybody in the area may have a business, but at 6 o'clock at night when you walk outside, you only hear crickets and tree frogs. Are we still going to hear that with 30 dump trucks running down the street? Like, this is a town, this is a beautiful town. We were here when there wasn't developments. We were here when farmland was all over the place. And this is the last remaining area that's subject to change. There was a proposal that they spoke about. They gave a plan of what they're going to do. And it says on there, concrete crushing, environmental dirt moving in and out, right? They said it was a mistake. Understandable. I make mistakes. But what if it's a future plan? I know from the little time I've been on this earth, businesses cannot stay the same. They progress. You must go with the time. And I can tell you, concrete crushing is the future to preserve the planet. So what happens when they move in and now they want a concrete crushing plant? I have to deal with the possibility of lung cancer for my niece and nephew, my family, because they're going to crush rocks. These are things that I'm scared about because we've made remarks and it feels like nobody's listening, right? We want to be able to live where we grew up without any type of disturbance like this. We don't object to companies. We don't object. There's plenty of businesses on that road. Let me tell you, anybody on that road will tell you, at 6 o'clock, nothing. It is quiet. Gasco's, Danley, nothing. That's how our residential community works. That doesn't sound like a residential community proposal. It sounds like an industrial area. Why not go to an industrial park? Or is Federal Road going to become an industrial park? All I'm saying is that I wasn't opposed to any of this because people have the right to do what they are God-given right. In America, you can have a business and construct it. But until I found out about all this, it frightens me. My home is no longer going to be my home. The blood, sweat, and tears that we put into our facilities, right, is going to be taken from us because 30 dump trucks, 40 dump trucks, maybe 60 dump trucks come up and down the road and nobody wants anything to do with federal anymore. Those are things to think about, right? Another thing is they don't have a septic system. Okay. You got people working there. Where do they go to the bathroom right now? There's people there now. Where do they go to the bathroom? Are they doing it in the woods? I don't know. All I'm saying is that I'm very scared for the future if this is something we don't really take a look at. Thank you.
Gentleman there with his hand up, please.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
John Burke, Burke, Winthrop Road, Monroe Township. Okay. All right. I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been in Monroe. I lived on Alexander, and we moved over to Winthrop and Monroe Township, and I had the privilege of representing Esposito, Matt, and his brother when they purchased the property. My wife and I are partners. We own Century 21 Burke Realty in North Brunswick and in Seaside Park, and I've only been in Monroe for 5 years. My mother-in-law, Betty Schneider's on the town council, and she always raved about the town, how great it was, to live there, to be part of it. And so when we moved over here, we felt very secure, happy with the people and all the services. So we became involved in a lot of real estate in the area, Manalapan, Monroe, Jamesburg, and a lot of the contiguous towns. And the subject property that when I got a call from the Esposito firm, who I didn't know at the time, they asked me to show them the property. And I remember the property going to Gasco's all those years, when it was some type of impound yard with a scrap metal company out in New York. So I don't know, most of the people that have been here for years can remember there was probably 100 to 200 vehicles there. There was old boats in there, campers, backhoes. So I've never lived on Federal Road, but if you remember 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't even get in there. There were so many vehicles up against the fence. So after, and they were very hard to work with, from a brokerage standpoint. The people that owned it, I think they were out of Staten Island, were very uncooperative. And just to ride by there, to go to Gasco's, to get mums and the Christmas decorations, Christmas trees. And we always came from North Brunswick, where we lived, prior to that. And, you go down the street and all of a sudden you see this junkyard. And I thought it was a scrap yard. So what the Espositos, when they bought it and what it looks like now, is 1,000% better than what it looked like 5 to 6 or 7 years ago. So people that live in that area, I don't know if they remember, all that garbage back there. But right now, when I go by, it's like a completely, different environment. I also own the Coastal Commercial Group, where we do a lot of conventional and SBA lending, and I work for the SBA. So we've been on a lot of commercial projects with Esposito. They do a lot of site work, and I got to tell you, they're probably the most reputable company that we can, when it comes in front of our board for loan approval, and Esposito's part of that. We know that there's going to be no issues with budgets, overruns, debris, problems, lawsuits. So, and I just stopped by here tonight because I had another attorney friend that I guess he's coming in next month, Peter Licata, and I didn't realize that they were here tonight. So, I just, anybody that's here that's against what they're doing, think about what it was 7 or 8 years ago. And I can tell you, if this gets passed, you won't regret it, because if there's ever an issue, they stand behind their company 1,000%. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Only if you're done. We're not going to tell you. Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Patrick Hyde.
If you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
It's on.
My last name is Hye. My address is Mounts Mills Road, Monroe. I would like to make my points, and then we could talk about an answer for my questions after I finish, okay?
Please proceed.
Thank you. What is the plan for policing the no left turn? How can the hours of operation be allowed to be long when it's connected to the township's brand new master plan? And with the master plan, it's farm and residential. How are we going to industrial? Oh, and with the same, in the same category, why wasn't the change done in the master plan before it came to this board? Was this an afterthought, or was a mistake? The buffer zone. I understand that if it's a residential, there's a different code. And then if you go into commercial, there's a different code. And then there's a separate code for industrial. And along with that buffer zone, it includes landscaping. Another question, and this is to Mark directly. I'd like you to give me an explanation on L. I'm not sure how this can be changed, because of the way the property is. I'm a longtime resident of Monroe Township. I've been here for almost 45 years. I grew up in Englishtown. I worked in Monroe at Roy Etch's farm and Pete Lepresti's farm. So I've been here, a lot. I can tell you that when they had the FBI's impound yard there wasn't like we could do anything about it. A lot of people tried to get that thing out of there, and it was always pushed off. Well, it's up to the feds. It's up to the feds. We never got a straight answer when they were leaving, and so that's for the gentleman in the back. Federal Road never looked like it looks like today. Never. I mean, when I was a kid, it was a dirt road, and they came up and down the road with the mosquito truck to burn, to get the mosquitoes away and not have some, and we were on our bikes riding through the fog, not realizing what was in the truck. And the other thing was they used to tar the road with old used motor oil in order to keep the dust down on the road. So one of the problems with the road, we measured the road guardrail to guardrail from the railroad tracks up to Monroe Boulevard. From guardrail to guardrail, the road was 39 feet 4 inches. So if you had, I'm sorry, I said 39 feet. It was 20 feet 4 inches from guardrail to guardrail. Some places a little bit wider. when they bring those low boys in and the equipment moving, they go past the sides of the truck. The federal rule, it says that the truck can be as wide as 106, but they're allowed because they have a wide load. They get an extra 16 inches. Well, they're taking more than 16 inches on each side. The width of one of those trucks is, which we measured with not the biggest excavator, but a medium-sized excavator, was 16 feet. That was track to track. How the hell are they going to get a school bus going down the road if the school bus is coming up from LaSalle Avenue or Tracy Station and it wants to go up Federal Road? I don't see how that's going to work. Have we got an approval from, this is my next question, have you gotten approval from the fire department? Has anybody talked to the fire department? Have they signed off on this? We have an environmentalist in the township. Did we get a report from her yet on an inspection on this property? Okay. I am glad to hear that they actually came about with a reasonable exit plan to get this equipment out of there. I just don't know how you're going to do it. 30 trucks. You know, they keep saying 20, 30, 35. I'm not sure how many it's going to be. But I do know this. You better nail down whatever you have, because the person that does their paperwork to come to these meetings seems to have a lot of mistakes in what they're presenting to the council. And I would like to know, are we using the first usage? We're using the second usage, or we're going to use the third usage? Or are they all going to be combined into one? It needs to be in writing. We need to have this on record. So when something happens, we have something to go by. Okay? And my last thing is the bridge. Has anybody from the town been out there to inspect that bridge lately? I mean, it's got a nice 2-foot round pothole in it right now. So thank you. I wouldn't want your job or having to make a decision about this, but one more question. If you approve this, what stops the Kucheski's property from being the same thing? Okay? Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Please come forward.
If you could raise your right hand for me, do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
My name is Mark Albergo. Last name's Albergo. I live at 740 Tracy Station Road, which is the entire corner of Tracy Station and Federal. My property has a guardrail that wraps around it. My parents bought the property in 1987. They've been there for 3 decades. They've since passed. I've taken over the property. When they originally moved in, it was like an oasis sanctuary. Extremely rural, extremely quiet. I've seen it develop over the years. I can't tell you how many times I've witnessed that guardrail get mangled by trucks. It's not a pleasant thing to hear that crash and see a truck stuck on top of it. I now have a 2-year-old daughter. The sound travels when, you're talking early morning or late at night. We got guys with hot rod cars that tear up and down Federal Road, and you can hear it for miles. I mean, it's loud, and you could literally hear anything. So my concern is quality of life with the 2-year-old daughter. What's the real net of it going to be? What's real world versus I paid an expert witness who has, some sound studies. What's the real world going to look like? And how will it affect her quality of life? Now, I lived in Bergen County. I've lived in Bloomfield, I've lived in Lyndhurst. I've lived in areas that were like extremely industrial and not pleasant to look at. This is an area I never thought would become an industrial site. And I'm concerned that the last bastion and oasis of rural Monroe is going to turn into a giant stretch of industrial, area. So that's my concern. My concern is, how will this impact the quality of life? I have a 2-year-old daughter. It's now very well, extremely, it's like Grand Central. Like it's the traffic, increases more and more and more and more. In the morning, I see that people sometimes I can't even leave my driveway because there's literally a row of cars going all the way up Tracy Station Road, wrapping around that corner. Sometimes you can't negotiate the corner. There's big trucks already that aren't part of this, let's say. But the whole area is concerning to me as it's developing, as it's shaping up. And then now this adds a new layer of dimension to it, which concerns me over time of how will it shape up? What will it look like, once this all comes to fruition? So my concern is, will this, is it going to lend to a more industrial, kind of feel? And I'm concerned about the town. It's kind of like a rural oasis, unique to itself, unlike other towns. And they're developing. You can't stop it. Developing is happening everywhere. But my biggest concern is, how is this going to impact our lives, our quality of life? People with kids, it's difficult now going up and down the road with large trucks and things of that nature, negotiating, passing each other. School bus was brought up before. That there's kids. This is a residential area. It's not an industrial area. It's a residential area. It's rural. Zone rural is last I checked. So my concern is, what's the real world implications of this? What's it really going to look like as opposed to what we see on paper, or what we projected? That's my statement. My concern is how will this affect the true residents of the area? The one gentleman, that lives in a town, he doesn't live next door to this. It's one thing if you live in a development. It's easy to say, but when you're living right next door to it or in close proximity, there's going to be, repercussions of this project, and that's my statement.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard?
You could raise your thank you. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Yeah, my name's Steve Martin, 24 North Disborough Hill Road, Monroe Township, New Jersey. I'd like to, I also own the farm at 21 Federal Road, which is across the street from the applicant's business that he's looking for a variance on. I've lived or operated the farm across the street for the last 13, 14 years. I've known of the property that is at question. Never knew what they did there until, found out it was an FBI, safe house for all their equipment and stuff they seized. But if you look at the aerial, and I've been through the woods, I've been over there, why they owned it. And it was a complete shithole. That's it. It was disgusting. There was stuff everywhere. It was dirty. There was cars. There was trucks. It was a mess. Okay. Over the last 3 months, 4 months since the applicant has taken over, the place is immaculate. Okay. So when I found out who it was, I been to his operation in Old Bridge. He runs a top class operation, the best of the best. Okay, you could eat off the floors in his shop. It's amazing. So when I found out he was buying the property, I was very happy because I knew it was going to be cleaned up. Okay, it is an area that has other businesses in the area. We have Danley Electric, who took over another dilapidated project, made it look beautiful. Landscaping, new buildings, lighting, absolutely spectacular neighbor to have. Okay, we have noise. We have tractors on Federal Road. We have commercial farms on Federal Road that have tractor trailers coming in every day. Okay, we learn to live with it. It's part of business. Okay, we love going to Gasco's. We love supporting our local farmers. Okay, they're there. They're growing. I mean, Gasco's Farm is amazing. It's one of the best businesses in this town. It's a place where everyone goes, and they're growing, and you got to be happy for that. That's a success story for Monroe. Okay, so we don't want to shut anybody else out. Okay, we do have his neighbor who's up here complaining, which I don't understand. I mean, you're working on diesel trucks. You're working on diesel engines.
Excuse me.
Okay, so the noise is the same on a diesel truck. A diesel tractor, which I run, there's a noise level. It's not that crazy. Okay, we should get along. It is a good area for this type of business. I think the traffic plan that he came up with is fantastic, going down Federal Road and going to Prime. That's fantastic. We don't have to worry about Tracy Station. I've seen the increased traffic on Tracy Station and Federal. It's all coming from the apartments that were approved because that's the easiest way to get to 33. So you come down Spotswood, Englishtown Road, you just put up how many senior houses, how many apartments over there. All them people have to leave to go somewhere. So if you want to go to 33, guess what? You come down Tracy Station, you make the right, and you go down to Federal and make the left. So that's where the increased traffic is right now. I don't see any traffic on Federal Road at Saturday, Sunday, or after 6 o'clock. It's slowed down. Okay, it is quiet out there. Okay, so I think it's good for the surrounding area. It's low impact. It takes a big chunk of property, and it makes it one user. We're not going to see houses. We're not going to see somebody come in for a subdivision or try to change the zoning or spot zoning. It's surrounded by small businesses. I believe it's a great place for a small business in Monroe. The parcel is bringing in $32,000 in tax revenue with zero impact on our schools. So that's a big plus for the town of Monroe. Okay. I know the applicant, his facility. I've sold him office equipment before, and his shop in his Olbridge office, like I said, is impeccable. The guy spends money, upgrades facilities, has the best trucks, 10 times better than probably what we have at Monroe DPW right now. All new stuff. So this is a quality applicant and somebody our town should embrace in the business that he has. Okay? He runs a top of the line operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Ma'am?
If you could raise your right hand for me, do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Tori Ray Matisoff, Matisoff, 34 Federal Road. So I'd just like to touch upon some of the testimony that you just heard regarding the gentleman that just sat here previously. He does have a property across the street from the current location that is being proposed. However, he does not live there. That is just a piece of property that he has, which is probably looking to sell to Esposito in the future, which I consider a conflict of interest. But I'll digress. Basically, we embrace businesses. My husband is a diesel mechanic. My father-in-law is a diesel mechanic. I live at a house that has a diesel mechanic shop. Across the street from us is the electricians. Down the street, we have other facilities as well. They all operate within business hours. I will have children that are going to grow up on this house, and many, many, many people are driving down my road currently. Now I'm going to have to wait out of my driveway when I'm waiting for my child to catch the bus or for me to go to work for 30 trucks that are backed up along the entire road of Federal to get out of my own driveway because the only way that they can go is right. That's the only way. And when they pull in, I have to wait for them to pull into my house. I have to sit in a line of trucks every single time I come home from work because they're pulling into their facility between 6 and 8. during the weekday and I pull into my own house at between 6 and 8, and now I have to sit on my own driveway in a residential area in order to wait for trucks. Additionally, for the noise study that was done within the facility, on the property, and to the property line. However, I would propose if they could do a noise study right outside, because this will be trucks sitting on the road that are going to be sitting by my house where I live currently. And, you know, I'm sorry, I'm sitting in my house. I have my windows open. If I have 30 trucks sitting on a road outside of my house, that is going to be a huge noise disturbance. Instead of just like, oh, they're working on some property and equipment in a building. I don't worry about that. My husband does the same thing. I hear it in my house all the time. I'm concerned about the outside and the actual physical transportation to and from this location, especially on a Saturday when Gasco's, has been brought up previously, is going to be swamped. So now I have full backup traffic of Gasco's all sitting on this bridge that I don't, again, have no understanding how there's no weight requirement on that bridge. It is barely standing as it sits right now. And additionally, with all of this, we have additional people pulling in to not only drive and pull trucks away from the facility, but we also have people driving in to the facility to pick up these trucks in their passenger vehicles. So technically, if you really double that, there'll be 60 cars on the drive at all times daily. So let's just like think about that instead of, let's say 30. Okay, so we have 30 cars going in, picking up 30 trucks going out, and then on the way home, you have 30 trucks going in and picking up 30 cars going out. So that's 120 vehicles additional to this road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Seeing there's none, I make a motion to close the public portion.
Motion to close.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public portion on this application, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, board members, council, I'm gonna give you a quick minute to rebut anything you heard.
Yes, thank you.
For the public, this is not gonna be a debate session. Everyone had a chance to be heard. Council does have an opportunity to answer potentially some questions that were brought up, and then we will bring it back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a couple, well, I can provide some clarification for some of the comments that were made. First of all, I think it was Mr. Wilden asked about wash pit at the site and vehicles coming back in mud. We are not proposing to wash any vehicles on this site. In fact, all vehicle washing occurs at the job sites. So when these trucks come back at night, they're clean. When they leave in the morning, they're clean. All right, so any washing will occur at the job sites. It will not occur here. In terms of site lighting, I think we testified at the last hearing, we provided testimony that lights will be turned off. There's no reason to have lights on in the evening. There may be some security lighting, but the operations are going to close down by 8 p.m. Let's see, the younger Mr. Wilden made a comment about concrete crushing. We are not concrete crushing on this site. You could put a restriction in the resolution if the board acts favorably about that. There's no intention to do any concrete crushing here. My client owns a recycling facility in Old Bridge, and that's where they do the concrete crushing. So I understand there was a reference in a PowerPoint presentation about concrete crushing. That was a mistake, and it's not occurring on this site. Secondly, there's no environmental materials that are coming into this site. The only materials that are going to be stored here were referenced in the plan or in the notes in the plan, and that's utility piping, miscellaneous fitting and accessories, precast structures and castings, concrete block, geotextiles, traffic control devices, which are barrels, cones, and barriers. So there's no environmental material that's going to be stored here. Let's see. Mr. High wants to know how we're going to police the left turns on this site, or no left turns. Well, as we've already indicated, we're going to put signage up. This is not a retail site where anybody's going to be coming here that's not familiar with how to exit this site. The employees who come every day are coming to the site every day, and the trucks that are leaving are gonna be leaving the same way every day and coming in the same way, and it's gonna be pursuant to that truck route plan that we request be incorporated into any approval. There was a question about landscaping. We've already addressed that with your engineer, that if a landscaping plan is necessary, we'll provide that. There was a question or a comment about environmental issues involving the site. Well, we've already provided a phase 1 and phase 2 of this site. It's a clean site, and we'll stand by that. And then lastly, I just want to clarify the number of trucks that everyone keeps talking about. 30 trucks, 30 dump trucks. We have 21 triaxle dump trucks that are going to be on site, and we're limiting our use to the 21 dump trucks. So there's not going to be 30 trucks coming in every day and leaving every day. It's 21 dump trucks. Whatever equipment list is on the notes to the plans is going to be the equipment list that we're going to maintain there. We're not going to exceed it. It's going to be whatever is on that plan. We already have a traffic study which indicates the number of vehicle trips, which I believe is 10 in the morning and 10 at night, because not every truck is going to go out every day. You know, that's what we're anticipating. We hope they go out every day, but it's probably not likely. And lastly, everyone seems to have a question about the fact that there's no weight restrictions on Federal Road. Again, I'll reiterate, there are no weight restrictions on Federal Road. And there are a number of other uses on Federal Road, industrial uses. One of the uses is actually the Danley Electric Building, which I could tell you 30 years ago, I got the initial approval for that when it was a furniture manufacturer with fairly intensive development. That was a long time ago. So I'm familiar with that site. You have a diesel site, which is right next door to our property. You know, I'm not going to comment on the condition of that site, but you know, I don't know what's going on at that site, and I don't think it's quite regulated, and will not have the same regulations that are going to be incorporated into this site. So, you know, those are my only comments. I know Mr. Burke testified as to what that site was like before. There probably were anywhere between 100 and 200 vehicles on the FBI impound yard. Prior to that, it had been an amusement facility with, you know, obviously storage of amusement equipment and an amusement business. So this is not a site that has never been a commercial site. It's been a commercial site for decades. But anyway, those are my only rebuttal, not rebuttal, but those are my answers to the members of the public who raised those issues, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, that's going to close testimony for this particular application. Board members, we have before us an application. We've heard it on 2 separate occasions, tonight being the second. We need to make a decision if we're moving forward or not moving forward.
I just have a question. The trucks, they're leaving all at once or throughout the morning?
It's impossible for them to all leave at once.
Yeah, but 6:30 they're leaving?
Well, yes, I mean, that's essentially the employees would come at between 6 and 6:30, and would probably leave between 6:30 and 7.
The trucks, okay.
All right, so, I mean, those are the hours we're seeking, and certainly we'll.
And they have to make a wide turn to get onto?
No, not really, because
really?
we have a fairly, I think as Mr. Arazimovich says, we've got a wide driveway over there, so they'll be able to.
I mean, on the
navigate.
road?
On the road, no, no, not at all. I mean, they'll be able to exit the driveway and exit.
They won't go into the incoming?
No,
oncoming,
I don't believe they
lane.
would be, no. And I think our traffic engineer can confirm that as well, if you'd like to hear that, Ms. Damiani. Certainly can bring it back up.
I believe you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think it's in the traffic report as well. So that was addressed.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Mr. Sachs a question?
Yes, Mr. Lupo?
Mr. Sachs, do you know what would be the largest width vehicle that would come down that road to get serviced? An individual from the public had a viable question. It's only 20 feet wide, that road.
I'm advised that I think the widest vehicle would probably be 12 feet. Most of the vehicles we have there are street vehicles, which, you know.
And is that the vehicle itself or the overhang of, if it's like a lowboy, it's carrying a?
Well, no, the lowboy, no, that's the size of the vehicle. I mean, the lowboy, obviously,
So
we're not
if you're
gonna,
bringing something in that's,
Yeah.
broken, that's hanging over, I mean, how is an oncoming car gonna get past them?
well, as I said, the vehicle, our traffic report does address that, and certainly it can accommodate it. We're not gonna, one of the issues we do have, always, being a contractor with construction vehicles, is we cannot exceed an 80,000 pound limitation on any vehicle. I mean, the fines, and by the way, I speak as a former prosecutor, the fines that you get for exceeding weight limitations are in the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So we are very cognizant that we cannot overload our vehicles. So we're not going to have vehicles, we're not going to have equipment that's going to overhang, because obviously that would mean we've got large equipment on some of these low boys. We don't want to exceed 80,000 pounds. We don't want to get in trouble with Monroe Township Police, State Police. We take that very seriously.
Does every large piece of equipment, or rather, let's say a lighter piece of equipment, it could be wide though, couldn't it?
It could be, but we're able to maneuver them onto, I mean, we deal with this issue throughout the state. I mean, we just don't work in Monroe Township. We work statewide, so we have that concern on any roadway that we go on, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the normal's 8.5, by the way, so. Come on up. Jay, come on up. Let me have the expert.
If there were ever a 12-foot wide vehicle, that would be an oversize. The normal is 8.5. That's a standard tractor trailer, 8.5 width. I just looked at all my templates.
And what do you need? We need about 15 feet as the width of a road,
Well, I think Federal Road is,
per lane.
A standard lane width is 10 to 12.
10 to 12.
County would always be looking to achieve 12 for each lane.
So if you did meet the max, like you just said, it would be close though, wouldn't it, an oncoming car?
If there was what is classified as an oversized load because of some large piece of iron, then yes, you would exceed that 8.5 I said, but I operationally, they'd have to talk about that, but that's an extreme situation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sachs.
and the dump trucks obviously are, well,
Yes.
certainly not within the 10, they're less than 10 feet, so.
You mentioned that the business is currently utilizing 21 dump trucks. Is it conceivable that it could expand to the range of 30 that one of the residents mentioned?
Not without me coming back to this board. Yeah, we're going to be restricted by what we have on our plans. And again, I don't think that's going to be the situation. We do have another yard. We have 2 yards in Old Bridge, so we certainly have enough room to accommodate other vehicles. No, we're agreeing to restrict our site to those 21 dump trucks.
Any other question? I think before we move forward, I'm gonna ask Tina, you can come forward, please. I understand you had a site visit.
If you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear any testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address, professional
Tina
address.
Pasakinski, P-A-S-U-K-I-N-S-K-I, 270 Federal Road, Monroe. So I did a site visit last week. Sorry. I did a site visit last week, and the site was extremely clean. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the manager of planning and zoning for the Township of Monroe.
Thank you.
I did a site visit. I walked the entire perimeter of where the work was being done. I went into the facility. Mr. Esposito offered for me to come there whenever I wanted to. It was a good
Mr.
walkthrough.
Chair, is she speaking as a member of the public or an employee of the district, of the township?
She just indicated she's a member of the township.
So she's speaking.
She's speaking as a
from-
zoning and planning manager at this point. She
Right.
did a site visit.
I checked
behalf of
the
the
round,
town.
I did the rounds of the whole entire site. I also happen to live on the road, I'm sorry. That's probably why. So I did rounds on the whole entire site. I also was brought into the building where there was many vehicles of all sizes that fit into the building. The reason that I did the site visit was because there were a lot of complaints that came in from various residents. I brought to light most of the complaints and got answers about those complaints. And then when I did the rounds on the actual facility, everything was up to par from planning and zoning's point of view. Also, Mr. Esposito told us that we could come to the site whenever needed, because I did bring up that with the complaints, we should be able to go there, and everything seemed above board with that.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, board members, we do have an application before us. You heard all the testimony. A decision needs to be made if we're gonna grant a use variance or not. They would still have to comply with all the remarks of Meeker and Mark to go forward with a final. Yes.
Discussion point. Use variance for operating hours also was included in this?
Yes, they did indicate the hours.
I'd have an issue.
Okay,
supporting
so
that.
if you have an issue, speak with council if they're willing to.
I disagree with approving the use variance for the operating hours.
You gotta use the mic. If you're
Again,
disagreeing with something, it's gonna be a motion.
no, I'm saying, do we even have to motion it?
Mr. Masters, we're asking for a deviation of the hours, which start at 7. We had proposed 6 a.m. We have no problem with agreeing to 7.
That's what I had the issue with. Okay. Take it back.
You're allowed to. Okay, so again, you just heard the applicant. They did indicate that they'd agree to a 7 a.m. start, which complies with the township ordinance. Therefore, once again, we have this application before us. We need to make a decision whether we're moving forward or not with it for a use variance.
Preliminary.
Yeah, no, I understand, but you have preliminary final site plan application. The D1 use variance, are you saying just the D1? Are you proposing just to consider the D1 use variance, or are you proposing preliminary site plan approval with a D1 variance? Just trying to make sure we understand where we've gotten to.
I'm just gonna think we're gonna do a site variance, and they're gonna have to come back, because there's still some unanswered questions.
No, it would be preliminary site plan and that with the D1 variance, and they would need to come back to the board for final site plan approval.
We understand that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so, board members, once again, here we are, we're at a junction where we need to vote yes or no to approve or disapprove the application. Do I have a motion anywhere?
Pardon me. I make a motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'll make a motion to approve with the waiver of for the curbing, and that the hours to start are 7 a.m., not 6:30, pulling out. And that, I guess that's it, the use variance.
Well, it's the site plan, we have a waiver for the stormwater management, the grading, so no.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've agreed. Stormwater management, grading, landscaping.
I did not recommend those waivers.
Yeah,
So
we're
if
not-
the board
we're
is
not
going
speaking
against
to
my
waivers.
recommendation, please make that clear.
No, we're going in conjunction with our professional engineer.
Yeah,
And
whatever.
if I'm not mistaken, you said this would all be cleared if it proceeds
fine.
forward prior to final site plan.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what I
We're not seeking
understood.
the waiver now.
Correct,
We'll deal with it at final.
correct. So I want everyone on board to understand there's still open issues here with respect to what they're doing, and they can't move forward until we get to a final site plan. And by that time, they would have already met with the engineer to work that out before they come before us and present it again. So Carol, please continue with your motion.
That was it.
So there's a motion to approve with the new revised starting time of 7 a.m., not
7
6:30. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
Okay. And everything else that's applied to by our professional,
yes,
what they're seeking.
yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Okay, board members, Madam Chair, a roll call, please.
Moved it, thank you. Ms. Damiani?
Yes,
Mr. Lupo?
No.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
No.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
And Chairman LaFata?
Yes.
Right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. We'll be back at a later date for final approval.
Still in a meeting.
All right.
Vince, Vince.
No. Catch their attorney. Catch their attorney.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, folks, our meeting is still in session, please. Our next application is BA-5223-22. Folks, if you'd like to speak, please take it outside. We have other applications we have to get through. Thank you. Okay, once again, application BA-5223-22. Patrick Mahone, request for a bulk variance.
So,
Counsel?
Chair,
Yes,
point of order, I need to recuse myself from this applicant.
you'll have to advise the attorney.
I've spoken with Mr. Masters ahead of time. He needs to recuse himself. At this time, I would ask him to step down from the dais into the gallery.
Kingsley, this particular application, you will be a full voting member, okay? Please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members.
Mic close to you so everyone who's here in the public can hear.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, board professionals. My name is Jared Pape. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Heilbrunn Pape, and our firm represents your applicant, Patrick Mahan. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to request confirmation that the notices we provided are adequate to provide this board with jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I did have an opportunity to review the affidavits of mailing and publication, and the board does have jurisdiction to hear the application.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Just as a high-level overview of the application, the applicant's goal here is to secure variance relief to build a single-family dwelling on the subject property being block 21.17, lots 1 and 21. The property is currently vacant. The property is in the Rural Residential Farmland Preservation District, which permits single-family dwellings. It's in a residential neighborhood. The surrounding lots contain single-family dwellings on lots of a similar size with similar characteristics as the subject lot. The variances the applicant is seeking are all existing conditions that are not being exacerbated by this application. As I mentioned, the property consists of 2 lots, and the applicant is proposing to consolidate those lots into 1 lot. I'll note that for an applicant seeking variance relief on an undersized residential lot, there is a requirement that the adjoining property owners are given an opportunity to purchase the property. Our office sent certified letters to the adjoining property owners identifying the variances that are being requested and also inquiring as to whether they would like to make an offer to purchase the property. We received no offers. Copies of these letters were sent to the board for your review. We have 2 witnesses. Mark Lieber is the applicant's professional engineer. Mark Remza is the applicant's professional planner. The applicant owner is Patrick Mahan. He is out of state and unable to attend this meeting. So I'd like to begin with the applicant's professional engineer, Mr. Lieber, if he could be sworn in.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Hi, good evening. Mark with a C. Last name is Lieber, L-E-B-E-R. With East Point Engineering. Our office is in Marlborough Township.
Provide your credentials.
Can't hear me? Okay, I'll bring the mic a little closer.
Provide your credentials for the board.
Sure. I graduated from Drexel University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering in 1999. After school, I returned in the evenings and completed the MBA program at Rutgers Graduate School. And in 2003 was licensed in New Jersey as a professional engineer. In 2005, I was licensed as a professional planner. And in 2006, I completed the Certified Municipal Engineering Certificate program. Since then, I've worked in both public and private sector, testifying before numerous boards, including planning boards, as well as this board here tonight.
Council, we'll accept his credentials as a professional.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lieber, if you could begin by just identifying the property and orienting the board as to the size of the property and its general characteristics.
Certainly. I do want to pass out 2 exhibits, which I'm going to reference tonight. The first one is a set of photos. The top sheet is an aerial map obtained from Google, and the next 2 pages are photos I took this morning at the property. And then the other exhibit is the variance plan that was filed with the board. The only difference is I added some color to it. So I'm just going to pass those out.
Mark, just give to me and we'll pass.
Okay.
And we'll call the first exhibit, the 3-page Google map with photos, will be Exhibit A1, and the second colorized variance plan will be Exhibit A2.
Perhaps you could begin with the aerial exhibit.
Yeah, just talk louder.
Perhaps you could begin with the aerial exhibit just to identify the subject property and orient the board as to its location.
Okay, so this is block 21.17. It's lots 1 and 21. The street address is 102 North Bergen Mills Road. It's a 2.25 acre lot in your rural residential farmland preservation zone. The lot's vacant, and it's situated just north of Daygrove Road. If you look at the front page, which is the aerial photo, I put a red circle in the center of this lot, and you can see from this photo that it is surrounded by single-family residential uses. The property is about 230 feet along the front and 420 feet in depth. Now, the history of this area is that these lots were originally created September 8th, 1910 as part of a subdivision entitled Middlesex Downs. And through, the decades that have since passed, there's been numerous consolidations and rezonings in the area. And presently, this zone requires 10 acres for a single-family home, whereas the lot's 2.25 acres. So it is a non-conforming pre-existing lot in the zone. There are other non-conformities, which include lot frontage and lot width. The minimum required in the zone is 400 feet. The lot frontage is 231.4 feet, and the lot width is 230 feet. And the other existing nonconformity is regarding the lot depth. The zone requires 400 feet, and the lot average depth is about 423.5 feet. So if you go to the second page of that exhibit, the first photo where you see the speed limit sign, I'm looking north along the street with the property being on my right. You can see it's pretty much a clear straightaway in this area with good sight distance. If you look at the next photo on that page, I'm actually standing across the street looking into the property, so you see a grouping of evergreen trees. Those are on this property. If you go to the next page, I'm now standing on the lot, and this is more or less the center of the lot. You'll see in the background there's like a little fenced-in garden area, and to the right there's an opening, and in the distance you see a fence which is along the border of the property. And the photo that's last here is looking in from lot 2401, which is, you're facing this property to the right, and you notice again the evergreen trees and the fence that's existing. Now, if you go to the other exhibit, which is just a coloring of the variance plan, what's proposed here is to construct a single-family dwelling. It's a well and septic. The septic's designed for 4 bedrooms. The driveway is 15 feet wide, and our proposal meets all required front, rear, side setbacks, as well as coverages in the zone. However, because the lot does not meet the 10-acre minimum and also has deficient frontage and width, we need bulk variances. We did submit architectural plans for the house, which you should have as part of your packet. It's a 2-car side entry garage. First floor has a combined kitchen, breakfast, family area. There is a covered deck in the rear with a portion that's open, as well as entry foyer with a study and a full bathroom and powder room on the first floor. Upstairs in the house, you have a master bedroom suite with walk-in closet. There's a laundry room on the second floor, and then there's 2 other bedrooms upstairs which share what's known as a Jack and Jill bathroom. I did have the benefit of reviewing 2 reports that were issued to the board. The first is a memorandum from CME Associates dated January 27th. I believe it's 2023. It's might be a typo. It says last year, but that's okay. And many of the things in this report are factual, and we take no exception to those comments. There is a item in here regarding the existing evergreen trees, which I do want to indicate that those trees will be removed. The history of those trees is that that was one time planted as a Christmas tree farm. Unfortunately, those trees were planted very close to each other, and they're growing into one another. In fact, many of the trees only have green on one side of the tree because the side that's against the adjacent tree doesn't have any foliage on it. So those trees would be removed. There is an ordinance in town that for a lot of this size, they can clear up to 20,000 square feet of trees to accommodate a house, a septic, and a driveway. And it's the applicant's intention to follow that ordinance. There is another comment, item F, about a post and rail fence. That fence was actually shown in the last photo of the handouts. The fence is actually 5 feet high, but it does project beyond the extended front yard line. And the applicant would like to keep the fence the way it is. It's an existing item that, serves as a clear visual barrier between their lot and the neighbor. So if the board would consider that, they would like to keep the fence the way it is. Item G, there was a question about the existing garden area. And frankly, the applicant has indicated that that garden is shared with their neighbor. Again, the garden is not in the way of the proposed dwelling. It doesn't really affect the project, and they would like to retain the garden as is. There was a item noted with regard to the driveway width, a side entry garage. You have a maximum 12-foot wide driveway width permitted. Our driveway was proposed at 15 feet. That was actually for a specific reason. Because this zone has a rather large front yard setback of 75 feet, we felt that by providing a 15-foot wide driveway, it would be more efficient so that in the event that a car had to pass another car, there was adequate room to do that without someone having to wait on the road because this road does not have a shoulder. So in essence, we're asking for relief to permit the driveway to be 3 feet wider than normally allowed. Curbing and sidewalk, if you look at the photos we presented, there's really, in this area, there's no curbs, there's no sidewalks anywhere around here. So the applicant is requesting a waiver from installing curbs and sidewalks, although they don't have any objection if they have to make a contribution to the sidewalk fund. Regarding septics and well, we already have a septic permit from the county health department. And then the remainder of the letter is pertaining to the planning comments, which our next witness will address in detail for you. Now, I also had the benefit of reviewing Mr. Razamowitz's letter dated November 8th to the board. And again, we have no objections to the comments. He also brings up the issue about sidewalk and curb and whether they should be provided or not. We did do soils work on the property with regard to the septic, and we will submit the information to the board with, the seasonal high water table elevations indicated. Should the board approve this application, we would still have to submit a plot/grading plan for the dwelling. That's pretty standard. And then the site distance is clear. That's why I presented these photos tonight, looking both ways on the road. We are currently in for a permit with Freehold Soil Conservation District for land disturbance. We sent a request to Monroe Township Utility Department for a letter of no interest because water and sewer are not available here. The property is not located within a freshwater wetland, a floodplain, or a buffer. And of course, any construction on the property is required to secure building permits from the town. We did make application to the DRCC, and we did receive an exemption letter from the agency. We're exempt from Middlesex County Planning Board review. We are going to make an application with the Environmental Commission. I believe their meeting is possibly next week. And then we're also soliciting comments from the Shade Tree Commission with regard to the project. That's all I have.
Only one point of clarification as to the garden area that creates an encroachment onto a neighboring property owner. As indicated, it is our client's intention to maintain the garden area, but we would propose that our client and the neighboring property owner work together to remove the encroachment. So essentially to relocate the garden area to remove that encroachment from being on their property. Other than that comment, I have nothing further. Mr. Lieber is available to the board if there's any questions.
Any board members have any questions? Please bring your next witness up.
Mark Remza is the applicant's professional planner.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
It's Mark with a K, and its last name's Remsa. My office address is 10 Dewberry Court, Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
Do you have any experience, Mo?
2023 marks my 43rd year.
All right, we'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Identify the variances and provide the support for testimony, please.
Yes, so the variances are the minimum lot area, lot width, and lot frontage deficiencies of the area, yard, and building requirements for the RRFLP zone. The minimum lot area is required to be 10 acres. The proposal is 2.25 acres. The minimum lot width is 400 feet. The proposed lot width, and it's existing as well, is 231.4 feet. and the minimum lot frontage is required to be 400 feet, and the proposal is, and existing, is 230 feet. And we've also touched upon the fence. It's an existing fence, pre-existing fence, but just to be safe, it exceeds the 3-foot high maximum that's allowed in the ordinance in the front yard. And it's an existing fence that's 5 feet. So what I'd like to do, we've talked a lot about the property itself. I'll talk a little bit about what's around the property. To the north are detached single-family dwellings. To the east, detached single-family dwellings. The south, detached single-family dwellings. And to the west, detached single-family dwellings. And the range of lot areas of those residences surrounding the property are roughly 2 acres to 2.5 acres in size. And some are actually much smaller, little over an acre. And those are the ones that are to the south of the property. So if we look at this property is really an infill development. It's surrounded by existing housing. And as Mr. Lieber said, it's actually the product of a subdivision in this area, which is quite rural surrounding it, but it's a subdivision that happened early 20th century. And so this is actually a remnant of that subdivision and the existing land use pattern. So if we look at this type of variance, this is a bulk variance. It also can be considered as a hardship variance because it's the shape of the lot that constricts the property. And we can't get any wider, we can't get any more acreage. And as Mr. Pape said, he reached out to adjoining property owners and there was no response to expand or buy the property, which is required for this case. So when we have a hardship, we have to have exceptional or extraordinary situation. I just described that situation to you as that it's all surrounded by existing dwellings and they're all similar in size. It has to relate to a specific piece of property. So indeed, for this application, it applies to block 21.17 and lots 1 and 21 make up this piece of property. And again, as I said, this specific piece of property is surrounded by existing residential development. So if we look at this, how does this relate to promoting any of the municipal purposes of the municipal land use law? Well, one is NJSA 40:55D-2C, provide adequate light, air, and open space. And as Mr. Lieber said, it completely complies with the RRFLP coverage requirements in terms of building coverage and impervious coverage. So even though it's smaller in lot area, it still has sufficient coverages as well as complies with all of the setbacks. So you're still going to have the same 75-foot setback and all the side yard and rear yard setbacks. Also to provide sufficient appropriate locations for, in this case, residential use. And why is this appropriate? Well, this is in a residential district. Even though it has 10-acre minimum zoning, we can see this little neighborhood has fully developed out with an existing lot pattern very similar to what is proposed tonight, within that roughly that 2-acre lot size. To promote a desirable visual environment, well, certainly having this proper setback, a residence that's going to fit into the neighborhood, similar type of size of home, it's going to be create a desirable visual environment. Also to promote and prevent the urban sprawl and degradation of the environment. So how does that do that? Well, this is infill, so it's not like we're going out and developing large fields. This is already surrounded in a residential neighborhood, and we're doing the infill development. And so given all those purposes together, I come back to A, the first one, is to promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Also, site suitability. This property has to be suitable for the proposal. So, is it suitable? Absolutely. We see that it fits in beautifully with the existing lot size pattern, fits in beautifully with the existing land use pattern, which is all residential, and certainly applying the setbacks and lot coverages completely complies with the RRFLP zone. Any negative effects to the public? Well, I really struggle to find if there's any at all, since this is fitting into this residential neighborhood. And so if we look to the north, east, south, and west, proposal residential use is compatible with the existing residences that surround it. And lastly, let's look at the master plan, and that's the 2022 master plan. And it actually advances land use elements and goals and objectives. And one is to maintain the rural and agricultural development pattern in appropriate locations in line with the state development and redevelopment plan. This area is planning area 4. That's the rural residential planning. And even though it doesn't fit the 10-acre zone, it fits in with the roughly the 2-acre land use pattern that's already existing and surrounding it. And also, you have another one that says encourage development and infill development where it's feasible, and to promote a more efficient use of land and existing infrastructure. And I'll come back to my original comment. This is a perfect case of infill residential development within a residential neighborhood. So, and also in terms of the design exception for the driveway, I do agree with Mr. Lieber. This federal road is a smaller country style of road, and you do want cars to come off the road and enter the property. And having the extra 3 feet on for the driveway will create a safer condition, and even so, it still complies with your impervious coverage requirement. So, given all that together, I believe you can grant the bulk variance and the design exceptions for this application.
Thank you, Mr. Remza. I have nothing further for Mr. Remza. He's available if there's any questions or comments.
Any board members have any questions or comments? Carol?
Is it possible to save some of those evergreens? Or are you going to put them all down?
I did go out and look at them, Carol. They were originally planted for Christmas trees.
Trees.
And when they're planted for Christmas trees, they're typically planted on 5-foot centers, which means they're meant to be cut when they're reaching about an 8-foot height. These trees are much taller. They're actually crowding each other out, and it's actually creating an unhealthy condition for the trees. And so that was my first reaction when I saw, oh boy, when I started doing my initial research, you look at Google Maps and say, oh wow, it's forested. So not until you get to the site and you see the condition where the trees are not really in great health. Yeah. So if there's some peripheral trees that maybe could be saved, I think the applicant would agree to it. But for the most part, it may be different. Most of them will have to go.
You're going to put a pool in? I see there's a lot of pools in the neighborhood.
That I can't speak to, but certainly if there is a pool, it still has to comply with the impervious coverage, and that applicant would have to submit a building permit for that and a zoning permit. Yeah. And if it complies, then they could have the pool. If it does not, back before this board.
Where is the septic going to be?
In the front yard.
Front yard.
Front. If you look at the colored drawing, I'm holding this up, and it's the northwest corner. You can see it like a rectangle.
Right.
That's where they're proposing it, and that's probably most likely where the soils are quite good for septic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing there's none, Mika, you have any comments on this particular application?
Yes, Chairman. I just make it quick since I have questions for both. To clarify, I believe the testimony was that building coverage and lot coverage would comply. I would just ask when you're submitting plot plan if you could give us the exact dimensions or percentages of that. We did derive that from the Google map, the site plan.
That's fine.
Okay. The second question, the building height, if you could just provide testimony that it does comply. We measured it as 34.79 from finished grade to the highest point of the roof. Just want to make sure that is your calculation and it complies.
Yes, it will comply.
In terms of street tree, you did testify that you'll be going to the Shade Tree Commission and that you would not need the tree removal permit due to the ordinance requirement. You're only cutting within the 20,000 square foot. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then couple of clarification points. I know, and maybe I misheard, generally, because this is consolidation of two lots, the lot width and lot frontage with a variance is required. I wouldn't consider them pre-existing because you are consolidating two lots and asking for a variance. And then the last part, thank you, Mr. Remza, regarding the testimony provided. Since this is the undersized isolated lot, if you could just touch the 4 questions that are required in Dallmeyer versus Lacey as to how that's being met, if you could just testify to that. You've already testified regarding the positive and negative criteria. Mr. Pape has demonstrated that they have tried to offer and sell. You have submitted the proposed house. And could you just, last point is to attempt where you demonstrate compliance and if any other setback requirements that needs to be done.
I thought I did that, but I have to repeat myself. It complies with all the setbacks, as I said earlier.
Thank you. And this does not violate any traditional zoning purposes, is that right?
Could you say that again?
This does not violate any traditional zoning purposes like light, air, and open space. Just making it sure for the record.
Again, if I need to repeat what I said earlier, I talked about the light. That was actually the first purpose of the zoning that I said that it promoted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll refer to my November 8th, 2022 review letter. Regard to curb and sidewalk across the frontage, again, this is a rural residential farmland preservation zone. It's not a typical area that we would be putting in curbs and sidewalks. So in this case, typically the board would take the contribution in lieu of the actual construction of the curb and sidewalk along the frontage.
That is correct.
With regard to the rest of the items in my review letter, do you agree to meet all the remaining items? Only a few.
Yes, we do.
Chairman, I have nothing further other than street trees shall be provided across the frontage.
Yeah, that's a reasonable. Yes, absolutely.
any board members, any questions?
Yeah, 50 feet on center to comply with the ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you. That's your only testimony?
Correct. That's the
Okay,
applicant's.
we're gonna ask anyone in the public to come forward if they wish to be heard on this application and this application only. Seeing there's no one from the public, I need a motion to close the public portion.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public portion?
Aye.
Okay, board members, we have an application before us. They're claiming,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
wait, hold on. You have a question, Ms.
Yeah,
Katura?
I know Carol already asked this question. Can some of the trees be saved and put as a shield between the next two houses?
Yes, it's the applicant's intention to try to save what the healthier ones.
Yeah, between the houses maybe.
Exactly, and there's actually some to the
Side already.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're not clearing out for the septic and the house, and if they're reasonably healthy, they should be saved.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this app.
It is a motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay. Secretary, roll call, please.
Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Kenzie?
Yes.
Chairman LaFata?
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we have a memorialization. In your packet, you had application BA-5218-22, 283 Applegate Realty. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, everyone said aye. Do we have any discussion items, board members? No? Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to be heard? Now's your time. Okay, I need a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any correspondences we need to establish or do? No? Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Happy New Year, everyone.